Welcome to Perceptions Today. It's UK date 25th of May, 2023. It's our Twitter Space Chat 53 with Diane Dreher discussing Taoism and also consciousness. Remember, this is being streamed to YouTube and also recorded for Perceptions Today podcast. Refrain from divulging any of your private information. If you do, let me know and I will try and cut it out of one of the actual streams, but obviously the live stream to YouTube, I cannot do that. Perceptions Today is all about contemplating consciousness topics in all different areas. I am your host, Paul, with your possible co-host, and she is now a possible co-host, is Melissa from Centered Awareness.
Good morning,
Hello,
everybody.
Melissa. And also, if life permits it, Ian D.W. Hawkins. He may just pop in as a listener, but I will point him out, and then we can just say hi to him from there. What I would like to do is also talk to you about some of the events that are going on at present. What we have in the pipeline are multiple ones, starting off in July the 11th with Joshua Cutchin, the author, discussing souls and consciousness. That will be possibly on the platform callin.com once we've tried it out. A future event with one of our guests who is here is Myron Dahl and also Laird Scranton and also Michael Spratt, who will be talking about the overview of geometry in meditation, visions, and water in science, the formation. Been talking to the three of them, and they're quite happy to have this as an exploratory kind of multi-part conversation going forward in July when we kind of set out the format for it, which will be fascinating. Also, as you know, our aim is to actually reach people with questions about consciousness, those who experience consciousness in a different way, researchers, and also other people who will be able to provide new points of view for our understanding, which is quite a lot that's going on as well behind the lines. Again, up in the Twitter Space Nest, you will find two pieces of information. One is it's recording now, and two are guidelines. And most of you know the guidelines here, but for those that are just listening in, if you do want to join in, this is what they are. Be civil to all, keep on topic and family-friendly language. Two, when you come to the spaces, obviously use a smartphone or a tablet with the app. Best to use headphones, make sure they're all charged. Again, Bluetooth connections in cars can be a bit dodgy at the moment. Ask before sharing anything into the Twitter Space /Nest. Thank you very much. And also, when you speak for the first time, if you want, you can get a 30-second overview of yourself, or also a brief question and also other information, and kind of do it in 3 minutes or less. That means that we can go around the people who got their hands up very easily and get in as many kind of questions as we go along. When it comes down to announcements, you'll hear who are people in the room that you should be looking at for either their podcasters, researchers, or they have just great information and follow their accounts. And also we have technical issues. You can either contact myself via DM, or you could contact Melissa at this present time. But as it's 4 a.m., it might be a bit of a slow response. If there's any more difficulties, we'll probably run into them as we go. When it comes down to using the emoticons on the bottom of your screen, if you look for the heart shape, you will also use this as the peace sign is cannot speak at present. If you have the mic, you might be away from the actual phone or doing something where it's noisy. Hands up is that you want to talk or request to talk. Use the icon in the far left of your screen on the bottom. Use the clap icon if you agree, heart icon if you strongly agree, laughing face if all things go wrong. I always like that, because if you've been with us for so many hours that we have, we've had many of those, but it's all worked out well. Waving hand just to say hello. And again, if you like the content, follow the people, follow their websites, and also become more involved. What I'd also like to do, Diane?
No, thank you. I was just playing with the icons. Welcome.
You slowed my roll. As I said, this is where the laughing face can come in, and we're also be really well suited for the topic of conversation. As you can tell, Diane's got a very good sense of humor. A quick taster before she actually does an overview of herself. I would like to tell you that she happens to have her PhD. She's an award-winning university professor and positive psychology researcher whose work on hope has been recognized internationally. She also has workshops and webinars that blend the wisdom of the past with the powerful strategies from contemporary psychology and neuroscience to help us meet the challenges of our time with greater courage and creativity and hope. Being being an author, she has 5 books which are been published into multiple languages. She also has the best-selling one, The Tao of Inner Peace, which has been published multiple times and updated as it goes along. She has a PhD in Renaissance English literature from UCLA, as well as a master's degree in counseling. She is a HeartMath clinical practitioner and professional certified coach with the International Coaching Federation. Her research on positive psychology and hope has been published with online and academic books and journals and much more. And it's my great pleasure to introduce you to Diane Dreher.
Well, thank you very much. I am absolutely delighted to be here and to add to all the wonderful things you said about me. I am a lifelong spiritual seeker.
And also, we're going to be mindful of time. We have an hour and a half with her, so it's 10 past. I got to go and click the other button. Hang on 1 second, everybody. And my mouse just didn't want to play. We're now live on YouTube, everybody. So as you've come through into this, we will be talking about the topics. So first off, I would like to start the ball rolling of getting you to look at the first time on reflection when you started to realize consciousness was something that you were interested in, even if you didn't know it by the word as consciousness.
Well, I became interested in consciousness when I was at least 10 years old, but maybe even younger. My father was in the Air Force. We moved all the time, and I was feeling very lost, So I would climb trees. And at one point, when I was 8, I climbed a tree next to our house at Hamilton Air Force Base. And all of a sudden, I looked down at my parents' house. I could see the red tile roof, and I could see the sky. And I felt one with the tree, one with the sky, and one with everything, and far beyond my little insignificant child self. So there was this sense of oneness and wonder that I kept looking for. And I found it a lot in nature, which probably led me to resonate with the Tao Te Ching, because Lao Tzu found his source of hope and inspiration in nature also 25 plus centuries ago. I lived in the Philippine Islands. My father was assigned to Clark Air Force Base when I was a little older. And again, I love the wisdom of the East. I love the art. I love the sense of openness in the Chinese brush paintings, where there's not a lot of stuff in the background, where there's this open space. The Japanese call it yohaku, which is the yin space, the empty space, in addition to just the yang space of active, busy awareness. And I realized that I had a yin space, and I'd go off by myself and try to get in touch with that feeling I'd felt in the tree, that feeling of oneness with something much larger than myself. In college, I began meditating and studying the Tao Te Ching, and I realized that's what I was looking for.
Excellent. I don't want to take you too far away from the point, because I've got a few questions already on this. When you were taken away, obviously, because of living in another place at a very early age, do you think it was the fact of liminality of going in to be completely taken away from your normal environment gave you that kind of either introspection or freshness to a view? Freshness, hang on. To appreciate new insights into where you are? Because obviously when you grow up in an area, stop laughing, Will. I know my teeth are in backwards at the moment. Appreciate the fact that there's something completely different, where normally if you're growing up in the same environment, it's all the same and your brain becomes desensitized to those stimuli.
Wow. Important question. I didn't ever become accustomed to living in any one place, as you said, because we moved at least every 2 years, sometimes more often. So it was always in some new place. And what I was looking for was something beneath the surface, something that was constant, a feeling of coming home. There's a sense of, there's a quote from the Tao Te Ching saying that when we're at home in nature and feeling at one with all creation, we're at home in the wisdom of Tao. I was looking for a sense of home, which I didn't really feel moving around a lot. And that sense of home is within us and around us. It's the greater reality that we're all part of.
Oh, most definitely. One of the other things I was going to ask, and before I start on this, Ian D.W. Hawkins, I don't know if you have the opportunity to talk today, but if you want to, obviously hit the request button. I know that you're working hard, and it's nice of you to turn up at this point. So everybody, that's my second co-host down there. Nice to see Trippy Vegan and Alex there. So when you were climbing trees and getting in touch with nature, did you ever notice anything different about time when you were in nature?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I used to get in trouble for it. We were supposed to be at home, ready for dinner at 6 p.m. every night. And when I would get out in nature, I'd go exploring and just wandering around. I'd lose track of time because nature doesn't function on clock time. You know, clock time is something that we impose on the larger reality. And I had a watch, but at one point I lost it. I guess I really wasn't resonating with clock time.
Oh, definitely. It's one of those strange things. Did you also find anything different about sounds that were there? Because we've been talking to people about consciousness and how when you just lose the sense of you and become one with the environment, strange things do happen, which are not the normal ones that you're told about as a child.
Well, not necessarily for me sounds, but I've gotten, direct sense of guidance, messages that come into my head that tell me to do things, which are usually very good things.
I'm glad you put that point in there because we could have gone a very different way in the conversation.
Yeah, you bet.
Come in on that one about how they sounded in your head and how they felt emotionally. Once you've answered that, we can then bring in Will from Conundrum there as well. Once you've answered my question, if they're okay with that.
Yes. Okay. Example, when I was trying to go to college, my parents told me they couldn't afford to send me to UCLA. So I was working these little jobs. We just moved to Riverside and they transferred my UCLA acceptance. So I had no money, no prospects. I was working for these temp offices, temp services, and in the summertime before school. And I drove by the newspaper, the Riverside Press Enterprise, and this voice inside my head said, "You're a writer, you should work there." So I made a U-turn of my parents' old red Volkswagen into their parking lot. And as a shy teenager, walked inside and said, "Hi, I'm Diane Dreher. I'm a writer. I'd like to apply for a job." Went upstairs to the personnel office, filled out some paperwork, and they said, "Our college intern just gave notice this morning. Can you start work on Monday?"
Wow, so that's synchronicity corner there at that point. With the actual voice, did it sound like your voice?
It didn't sound like my voice, not a shy teenage voice. It was a very confident voice. It was like a voice of some kind of wise guide that was telling me, do this. And I didn't even think about it. I just did it. So there is this all-knowing guidance that is part of something larger than ourselves that we can tune into.
Oh, definitely. We've heard a lot about that with people either going through accidents or other bits and pieces where they will get instruction and they know it's not them, but they automatically do it. And that is just phenomenal that you just give up. Because obviously when you're born and you're taught about other humans that sometimes they will lie and treat you indifferently, you don't always take them that they're going to be nice people to you. But suddenly when these things which are out of the ordinary and happen so quick, you just do it and you just continue, which is fascinating.
Yeah, I think it's because we feel this real intimate connection with that kind of guidance that we may not feel with the people around us. We trust that guidance.
Oh, definitely. Will, would you like to come forward?
Yeah, I'm liking what I'm hearing here. I just want to tune back a little bit regarding nature. Now, if I had my wife here, she would confirm everything that's happened around me with nature. But I feel that I have a connection with animals indirectly, and I don't know where it's coming from. And it's like we laugh about it. So is it physically also, or just because of my nature, my aura? So because you mentioned more spiritually, right? So it could be more physical.
Wow, what an interesting question. That reminds me of Saint Francis of Assisi, who would preach to the birds and the animals, and the birds would come and land on his shoulders. is it physical or is it metaphysical? It's something that includes us and connects us all, and you've tuned into it, and the animals trust you. I think I think we're all connected intrinsically, whether it's physically or spiritually or emotionally. And the HeartMath Institute is trying to measure these connections, actually, and they're both. When people are in a room and somebody is meditating and in a state of high coherence, that state of high coherence goes out and raises the coherence level of the other people in the room as well. So that, is that physical or is it emotional or is it spiritual? Hard to say, hard to measure.
That's what my question is, and that's been boggled my mind, and that's why I got a dog. And we talked prior to this, and that's why I got a dog, because I have a connection with animals. So why not try a dog? I'd be a great dog owner, right? Because I can look at her and see what her needs and wants, right?
Yes.
Oh, a good one for you. And I'm not sure if people have heard this, but tell me if you have. Have you heard about on YouTube Bunny, basically it's a sheepdog who's been taught to communicate using pressing buttons which have got word association with them?
Wow, that's fascinating. No, I will have to go check it out.
I'll quickly tell you. So they started her off as a pup, and the large kind of press down buttons that you would see in good old nuclear warhead kind of movies where they'd slap the red button and everything afire. Well, they're down on interconnecting mats, and they started off with simple words. So the owner had pre-programmed the button with a word. She's now I think she's over a year old now. She knows over 200 words. She will answer questions and also she will also voice comments to her owners, like "Where's Daddy?" which is obviously the partner's husband, and also "I want to go out," and also "squirrel" or other bits. So they're all out in a certain way, interconnected on the floor. So they're always put out. So if she moves to another, say, house for a weekend or something, they go with her. And they're now teaching another dog to do this. And they can also do it with cats as well. So that's fascinating that they can build up the sequence and knowledge and understanding.
Wow, that is interesting. We all have Wernicke's area in our brain, which is the language center. And then we have Broca's area, which is the speech center. And a lot of animals don't have Broca's area. So I'm thinking that they get very frustrated because they're trying to communicate with us. My dog barks and looks at me like, "Don't you understand?" We have some research that was done in the San Francisco Bay Area a number of years ago with Penny Patterson, who taught this gorilla sign language. Coco is the gorilla's name. And so Coco could communicate with sign language and answer questions. They tried to mate Coco with this male gorilla, and she signed that she didn't find him very attractive. Okay. So we have wonderful ways now we're discovering of looking with a window into the minds of animals. And they're a lot more intelligent than people used to think.
Oh, definitely. I'm going to bring Myron in because he has a question for you.
Yeah. Good morning or afternoon or whatever you are.
Good day. Yes.
Yes. Good day. Right. I was watching a YouTube transmission the other day about this cat that the owner had died, and so the owner's brother took the cat in and treated it really well and loved it and everything, but the cat was always depressed. He just wouldn't do anything, and he just lay around and he wouldn't eat, and they all kinds of negative behavior. And so he tried an experiment. He had an old video of his brother just talking on the video. So he opened his phone and he let the cat see the video. And the cat, they have all this on film. It's incredible. The cat is sitting there. He's glued to the phone, looking at his old master talking to, whoever he's talking to, and so connecting to it. He is not moving a muscle while he's looking down at this phone And then as soon as the master stops talking, he lays down and sleeps on the phone.
Oh,
So I was so happy to see him that he connected to him. So this idea that animals don't feel anything and they don't, they can't be hurt and blah, 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 blah. It's just, it's such utter nonsense. And it's so touching. I mean, you can't, just seeing this cat with his certainty about that's my master there in that phone, wherever he is. And then he gives it all up and he just lays down and sleeps with him.
yeah.
And then from then on, he was happy.
Oh my gosh.
They would let him see the phone every once in a while. And it was just, and then there was a German Shepherd who used to go jump over the fence and go to this graveyard and sleep on the grave of his master who had passed away. And he would go there all the time. So finally, everybody just let him do it. All the people that ran the graveyard and everybody just figured, okay, this German Shepherd is going to go and sleep on his master's grave, and we're just going to let him do it. And so he would spend like 2 or 3 hours, and then he would go back home again. So this empathy and love and connection with animals is very special. For me, it's crows but I love cats too, and dogs. But for me, it's crows, and they are spiritual birds in my history. And that they have death rituals. Crows actually, if there's a dead crow on the ground, the crows in the trees come down and just touch him.
Oh,
and fly off. I've seen him do it. Like one crow got hit by a car and he was dead, and so they had the whole 50 or 60 of them came to this tree, and then they just flew down and touched him and flew off. So it was a death ritual. So even animals. I mean, I know that elephants are famous for that too.
Oh, definitely. I just want to find out from Diane whether she'd actually heard about these bits that you've just mentioned, because they're obviously very relevant to being the connection to everything. As we've been saying before, we think everything is connected from wherever point of origin is, and then obviously you have consciousness and then everything inside consciousness. Had you heard about the cat and also all the ones about dogs sleeping on graves, etc.?
Well, when Myron was talking about the cat, it actually brought tears to my eyes. That is so gripping. Yes, I've heard about the German Shepherd, and I did a webinar for the Positive Psychology Guild in the UK about the human-animal bond, and there are incredible stories of being in touch with each other on a very deep level, a nonverbal level for most of us, which is emotional, heart to heart. Which again, the Tao Te Ching says everything is connected. We are all one. So this is very inspiring, and I'll never look at a crow the same way again. They come to my yard and now I'll wave at them.
There's also another one. Sorry, Maureen, I'll just quickly do this one and then I'll let you go through. I was watching one about crows. So, for example, if you give them low quality food first off, they come to you for more food. Then if you start increasing the quality of the food, they start bringing you presents. And then the better the food that you start giving them, the better the present they bring you. And this one particular person ended up having like nails being brought, shiny things, possibly little bits of jewelry. Then it got into cash. Cash was being, as in notes were being brought to him. So it's amazing on the communication front.
They use cash. This is
well,
amazing.
They steal cash.
Right. Well, some humans do that too. That is remarkable.
So don't leave your windows open next to the crows. That's what I say.
Yeah.
There was a program on the BBC about crows, and this one owner, she could never keep the crow in the cage because he was always picking the lock, and then he would pick the lock, and she would go to work, and he would fly out and fly by her car while she was going to work, and then she would put the top down, and he would just land into the car and sit there on the seat until she got to where she was going. And then he would spend the day in her car, or he'd go fly and do whatever he was going to do. And then years ago, we had a baby crow fall out of the tree, and we didn't see his parents or anything, so we decided to raise it. So we put it in an outside cage, and the parents started coming almost immediately, and they would sit in the trees above their baby and talk to her. And it was just so incredible. They came every day. They talked to the baby every day. And then when the crow was big enough so we could let it go, we put her on top of the cage, and the two parents flew down and picked her up and then took her away.
Oh,
And it was such a beautiful family, and crows mate for life. They're not like humans who divorce every 50 minutes. They actually mate for life. And it's an amazing, when I was growing up, it was always bird brain, and birds were stupid, and dinosaurs were stupid because they had small brains, and all this mythology about animals, which I never understood, especially if you're interested in consciousness, especially in the East, which I am. And all of this just disproves all of the mythology in regard to animal behavior and what they understand and what they don't understand. My cats come to me like children. They talk to me. It's really touching how intimate they get with you. I have one cat that talks all the time. Thank God he's not here right now.
He's a very well-liked participant.
He talks all the time. He never shuts up. And that's cool. But anyway, that thing about crows on the BBC, you should look that up, because they show all kinds, they solve problems, like they would cross strings on which one of them would have the food and one would not. And they crossed the string, so he'd have to figure out which string had the food. And he would just look at it and go, oh, it's that one. And he'd cross it and pull it up every time. And picking locks, they could just pick locks with no problem.
Well, they use tools as well, which is amazing. And I was wondering how you feel that is with, obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, Diane, when you say, obviously, the definition of Tao is the way, how that connected with consciousness is. Do you think you're kind of connecting in and becoming that messenger forward? Because a lot of people aren't really connected. Many in the actual room have had experiences which have brought them into being connected and helping others. So it's always fascinating to see how that fits in with other people.
wow. I could go two directions with that, with probably more. I believe that one of the biggest problems we have in our world is the fact that we human beings have gotten very disconnected from one another, from nature, and from a deeper sense of ourselves, so that we need to reconnect. And that what's interesting is that animals are connected. They don't get distracted by social media or by, their egos telling them that they have to plan and ruminate and worry. They're present, like good Buddhists. They're in the present moment, and they're connected to us. To respond to something that Myron said, when I was 5, I had a guardian who was my Labrador retriever, beautiful dog named Cinder. And my mother was, shall we say, preoccupied with other things. So my dog every day would walk me down the street to kindergarten. And then at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Cinder could apparently tell time. She would walk back to the school and walk me home. She was my protector, my best friend. I would hug her, speak with her, and she was wonderful. And then my dad got transferred down to Washington, D.C., away from Kentucky, where we'd been living. And because my parents were preoccupied and didn't realize the importance of our bond, they gave Cinder away to a farmer outside of Louisville, And when we had driven down to our new home, my dad got a call from our prior next door neighbor saying, your dog is sitting on your front porch of your old house waiting for you. Had I been an adult instead of a 5-year-old child, I would have immediately gotten in the car, told the neighbor, get the dog, take care of her, I'll be right up. That sense of loyalty, she walked for miles back to the house to find me, to find us. And it broke both of our hearts, When we're disconnected, we're disconnected from our hearts.
Definitely. And to add to that, there's a couple of things. One, when I was going to school, and my school was like a mile and a half away, and I used to walk to that, I had a friend who lived further up the road from me. And one day when I was at the school, there was a particular dog running around the playground after I got there. And people were, because it was obviously like playtime. And I kept on going, I know that pattern on that dog's fur and everything else. And I called the name, and it turned out it was my friend's dog had obviously followed my my actual trail to school and followed the scent. So I had to get my parents to come and actually pick up the dog and take it back. So that's amazing in its own right that they would just follow that all the way. And you've obviously heard of Rupert Sheldrake's book about dogs, or not?
Yes.
So that one is fascinating. For no one who's actually read it, it's talking about an experiment they ran of making their owners go home at random times using different transport and everything else, but they had cameras within the house of where the pet was, and people weren't around. And as soon as the random people were phoned, because so they had basically people participating in the experiment doing the rolling of dice, say, for example, in a different location, they would phone the actual owner, and as soon as the owner was telephoned, the dog or cat would go straight to the position where they'd normally look, and it's almost like instantaneous communication.
Well, that proves it, doesn't it? Dogs don't need cell phones. They don't need instant messages. They are already connected to their owners, beyond time and space in this oneness.
Oh, definitely. So if you had to try and describe consciousness to people and the way it makes you feel, could you do that? I know it's a bit of a hard ask in the amount of time that we have, but it is one of those things that I like to try and find out from people. And again, you don't have to answer any of the questions I put forward.
Well, the Tao Te Ching says that the Tao cannot be defined, okay, in words. But it
That's
can
a
be
very good
defined
get out of jail free card there that you've just used. I'm hanging up now, everybody. I'm just walking away.
It cannot be defined in words, but we know it as a feeling. In terms of neuroscience, there's something called the default mode network, which is where our ego lives, which runs planning, worrying, ruminating. The inner critic, all this stuff lives with the default mode network, and it runs in our minds when we're on that level, nonstop, like kind of an annoying AM radio station. When we are in a state of awe, oneness with nature, overwhelmed by beauty, when we're meditating, when we're connected heart to heart in a loving relationship with an animal or sometimes even a person, we don't have that default
Hang on.
network.
Sometimes even a person. That's an interesting phrasing you've got there.
Well, because people are not as pure heart to heart as animals.
True.
Because we've got this default mode network. We're self-conscious, and sometimes that keeps us from connecting authentically. We're playing a role. Animals don't play a role. They're who they are, so that they can come forth, sincerely in a pure space. When we are in that pure space of pure awareness, we are one. But it's not something that we can just sort of define in words. Mahai Csikszentmihalyi called it flow. We can find it with great art. We can find it sometimes when we're running, when we're participating in the martial arts, and we're in just a flow state. Our ego disappears.
Oh, definitely. I mean, that could be anything from tying your shoelaces to just contemplating the butterfly that's landed in front of you, that you disconnect from the standard environment and become more sensitive to things, which I think a lot of us have come to. Conundrum?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that list there that you had to lose your ego. I got married for that. So I'm just saying that could be another option that you could do to get rid of your ego, right? Is to get married, maybe? I don't know.
Yes, to the right person, to a person with whom you can connect, heart to heart, soul to soul. Absolutely.
Right. Funny old side, but really that's what it is, right? You can connect with that person so you don't feel higher up or you need to always, you can connect down to their level, right? Because when you have a hierarchy, you don't see them the same way they see you, right? And so as long as you're in the same level, right? And that's what I said. Maybe, it's funny. It sounds funny, get married, but yeah, maybe, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
That's the best way. Also, leadership, really effective leaders become one with the process and one with the people that they're leading. The Tao says that with the best of leaders, when the work is done, the project completed, the people all say we did it ourselves. The leader sees beyond ego. The leader sees the connections and brings out the best in people. And we need leaders who can do that instead of parade their egos around in a rather destructive way.
and along with that, I think it's also when you know people who compliment you, that's when it works well. You don't tend to spend that much time arguing, or you don't argue with them at all. But with people that I kind of encountered within these communities and outside and around these topics, they all seem to be very much, they put any kind of narcissistic ego, which most of them don't have. It's just literally, here's the information, and you can have a joke with them very quickly. I haven't found many somber people in that kind of environment.
Fascinating.
I don't know
Oh,
about yourself or not.
I agree. And I'd like to hear from Myron, who has something to
definitely.
say.
Yeah, I had some questions about your relationship with the Tao and how that came about. In my case, I was born into a Christian family, and I was in a coma for like four or 5 months, something like that. Then I came out of the coma, and my mind was erased, and they thought I was demon possessed, and blah blah blah. And what's interesting about it is that when I came out of it, I had a spirit guide that I could see and talk to and interface with. And later on I would call it Charon, but I didn't call it Charon back then, just my friend. But Charon moved me emotionally and spiritually towards the East, away from Christianity. And like, for instance, I started reading the I Ching when I was about 9 or 10, something like that. And I got the book that Jung had written the introduction to, that Wilhelm had actually stolen the translation. Well, he stole the book from China, and then he did the translation, and then Jung wrote the introduction of the Tao Te Ching. And the minute I opened the book and started reading some of Confucius's ideas, about every event in the visible world, for instance, has an image, and that is an idea in the unseen world. So the two things are connected. The as above, so below myth, and from there I started studying Lao Tzu, and those became my heroes. All the East became my heroes instead of the West. A different kind of philosophy entirely. And even though I read a lot of the Western philosophy, Descartes and others, it was always the East that, because of what I thought maturation of Eastern ideas, just the fact that there's things to do and things to solve, and there are things to accept and or become one with, and there's very little absolute judgment. In other words, every difficult time has the wonder of its opposite available, and every wonderful time has its opposite available, which is not so wonderful. And the beauty of it is that you get to learn from both. And I thought that was so mature compared to Western ideas of good and bad, and good and evil and all that kind of thing. And so I started reading Lao Tzu early, and I started with the I Ching, studying it, and then throwing hexagrams, and then years later I would do readings for people using the I Ching. And the beauty of it, I think for me, was this lack of judgment that comes from Buddhism that is refreshing when you've been indicted as a demon-possessed child, because that's what I was. I went through 2 exorcisms.
Oh,
And so when Charon moved me to the Eastern ideas, most of that dissipated very quickly, and because of the way they were they were outlining the way that the as above so below myth worked, from a personal level to a group level to a cosmic level to a universe level. It's all the same thing. And again, I thought that was really mature. Now jump ahead 50, 60 years. I married a Chinese lady who was a doctor, and who is a direct descendant of Confucius.
The Twitter Space room crashed. We had to restart it. Okay, just getting sorted. Okay, anybody hear me? Oh, excellent. That's good. We got people back.
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay, just wait for connection. I tried to inform Melissa to inform everybody, but I don't think it went through.
well, I'm back. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened.
It's not your fault. It was some technical issue on this side.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I think out there in the void, it was causing a problem. I'm just going to have to put you on pause and then I'll be back in a minute. You can talk amongst yourselves, but do realize you're being recorded until I come back when hit go live again. So
Okay.
just the way it is. Right. I just want to see if Ian has got the ability to speak at the moment, if he's finished work or not, because it was good there. All right. Let's share this tweet that we're all back again. It was all going so well.
I know.
Hopefully you're
I
enjoying the
loved what
conversation.
Myron was saying. I mean, fantastic.
I lost half of it after listening to the replay. All right, hang on 1 second, everybody. I'll be back.
Well, while he's gone, I guess we can continue to talk. But I remember.
I loved what you said.
I remember when I was in Beijing. We went to 2 places that were really significant. Well, quite a few places, but one of them was a Tibetan temple that Mao didn't tear down. I'm shocked that he didn't. And it's right downtown Beijing, and it's huge. I mean, they have the 7 buildings because those are the 7 stages of transformation. And I'm an artist by trade, and the carvings in each room, each there were 7 buildings, so you went to each building, and then when you got to the last, you have the 3 Buddhas and all of that stuff. And the carvings were like 1,500 years old, and the energy in all around this temple, because the monks were still there. There's like 150 monks that wear black all the time, and they're untouched by the Chinese government. They don't bother them. They don't. I think if you want to know the truth, I think they use it for tourists, but regardless of
Probably
that,
so.
it doesn't affect the monks, because the monks are very dedicated. And
Okay, I'm back. All right. I hope you've
Wow.
been talking amongst yourselves, which is good.
Yes, we're talking about connections, and all of a sudden we became disconnected, but here we are connected again, thank goodness.
yeah, it was
We're now still going out.
that was interesting.
Oh, definitely, especially when I was trying to find a way of saying to everybody, oh, it's all gone wrong. But lucky enough, we're now back on track to what's going on. I'm not sure about where Melissa is, but we will continue on and she will pop in, which would be good. And also, we probably lost only 10 seconds what Myron was saying when it kind of faded out in the previous room. So I don't know if you wanted to respond directly.
Well, we were talking while you were working, and we were just talking about my experiences when I went to China about 10 years ago, I guess now. I felt like I was home. I mean, it was very strange. And going to the Tibetan temple, was remarkable. I mean, it was the most incredible thing I think I've ever been in. And I've been in some beautiful cathedrals all over Europe, and they're beautiful, all right, but they don't have the energy for me. And I'm not talking about anybody else here. I'm just talking about me. For me, when I went into those 7 buildings and saw those sculptures that had been carved, like 1,000 years ago and 800 years ago, and I just couldn't. I just had to sit down in front of the energy and just absorb it. Because when the energy comes to me, either via my spirit guide, Charon, or it's just around, I connect to it almost immediately. I just feel its presence, and then I'm in it. I don't have to do anything because there isn't anything to do. There's just acceptance and negation. So I just accept it immediately, whatever it is. And it was just the most powerful spiritual event I think that I'd had for many, many years, except when I live in Chatsworth, and Chatsworth is famous for its sandstone mountains. They shoot movies here, but they've been shooting movies here for 50 years. And
the Twitter Space room crashed. We had to restart it. Can anybody hear me? Has it died again? No, you can hear me, Seska. Thank you. That's good. All right. Am I in the room? I'm in the room. Got the room recording, which is fine. Got to get the message out to... let's get into the messaging system. Hi, Mirror. Oh, don't do this to me, phone. Part 3 is not going to work, is it? Not going to be like that, phone.
So what was the topic today?
It's not fair. All right. Let's see if we've got everybody getting there. Right. Hi, Maren. All right. Let's do that. Let me just quickly get the link. Oh, the link didn't go to Diane. Okay. I sent the link to... Right.
Yeah, I think I'm back alive.
You are, which is good. It was just one of those things where everything was bouncing around and not working for some reason. Got the recording there. Going to get the link sent to Diane. Oh, she's here. Okay. I was just trying to fix all that as we're going along. Did anybody swear at any point? Is that what caused the problem? Just want to know.
I don't think swearing has much to do with it. I think it has more to do with must.
Oh, don't start. Don't even say anything because I'm still trying to have a conversation. How are you still doing on time? Because I'm going to try and get the other one connected properly again.
Okay. I've got 20 more minutes and I
Excellent.
would be delighted to participate some more.
We do it in chunks here. It's much easier to concentrate then. Hang on 1 second while I hit the other button and get that organized. If anybody sees anybody else come in, you can just say things to them as you got the mic at the moment. Hang on.
Okay. Well, Myron, I loved what you said about the temple in Beijing because I was in China and experienced something similar. That beneath the surface of their government structure, the ancient wisdom still remains over there, and the oneness with nature in a lot of places.
Yeah, I absolutely concur. And the synchronicities between what the Book of Changes talks about and my own life are unavoidable. Like, for instance, there's this in the second part. There's this connection with the 10 wings, as they call it, which is an exposition and containing the substance of the oldest literature part of the book. And the bird, when I used to be beaten by my folks, there was a giant crow that always took me away out of body while they were beating me, and then would bring me back when they were finished. And so there was just so many connections between Lao Tzu's writing, and who wrote part of the I Ching, and Confucius, who wrote part of the I Ching, kind of like St. Paul in the New Testament. And
Yeah.
Even though Confucius is more doctrinal, and I'm not all thrilled about that, but Lao Tzu is much more mystical and and much more. I connected more with, I think, Lao Tzu than I do with Confucius. But the fact is that the opportunity for someone like me who was considered demon possessed
Oh,
to read, and of course my parents never saw me throw a hexagram, because if they had seen that they would have flipped out. I mean, they would
oh
have gone,
yeah,
oh, good.
that would have really convinced them. He's
Yeah,
definitely
right.
possessed.
That or a Ouija board or something.
Oh yeah.
Never mind, this is a 5,000-year-old text. And but that, they don't care about those things. But
Okay,
anyway,
public service announcement. We're back, we're running, which is good. And as you said, I know that you got 20 minutes. So for people out there who are listening, if they want to come in and get their questions organized, Myron, please finish.
Okay, I'll just wrap it up by saying that it also happened to me when I did a show in Vancouver at the university there, and I went into the area where they have a collection of Native American art and carvings, and there was boats and creatures, and of course all the animals that they carve, the badger and the wolf and the this and the that. And I was so struck by the of those carving that all I could do was sit down. And I told my wife at the time, I said, look, just go do something, because I can't just walk through this. I'm going to have to integrate this energy from these carvings. There was like 50 of them. And they had totems outside, but right outside the door, so you could see them through the glass. But the other carvings were inside, and they were so numinous and so powerful that all I could just do is weep. Well, I felt that same emotion when I was in the presence of these various stages of evolution in consciousness, because I knew that when you walk in and you touch truth, it's true. There are things you can read that you read it and you just kind of go, okay, well, that's interesting, but it's just interesting. And a lot of philosophies like that, and great, that's cool. I don't have a problem with things that are interesting. But you walk into the presence of, like, that temple, that Tibetan temple in Beijing, or the museum in Vancouver. They even had a sweat lodge they had completely set up that you could go into. And now that was not real. That was manufactured by them, but it was still an exact reproduction of it. But anyway, to end this, when I was in the Tibetan temple, it was like that all things that were up or down or right or left, all those opposites just went away, and it was all one thing. It was all now, and it was all things were all integrated as I had never felt before. And except on the mountain in Chatsworth where I live, the Chumash lived here for thousands of years and did their rituals on a mountain that's very close to me. And I used to go up there all the time, night, day, doesn't make any difference. And every time I would walk on those stones and touch the rocks and the trees and watch the animals run around. And interestingly enough, there's mountain lions and bears and all kinds of creatures here. And I would go up there at night and they would absolutely leave me alone. Like, hey, all right, this guy, he's cool. He's cool. He's cool. And
Yep.
they wouldn't bother me. There was no, I never felt threatened by any of the mountain lions. There's plenty of them around here. And but I got the same reaction from the mountain that I did from the Tibetan temple or the carvings in Vancouver. And then I realized that consciousness is ubiquitous and universal. And then I sort of moved towards a book called Cosmic Consciousness by Buck. It's an old 60s book.
Oh, yeah, I read that.
Yeah, yeah. I
Myron,
think
before we get
everybody
too
with a
far away,
certain age have read that book.
Myron, you brought up some very good points that I'd like Diane to actually address before we get too far away. Obviously,
Yeah,
on the
sure.
interconnectedness of everything, which is one of the big things that we talk about. I know that obviously you've got a big connection to neuroscience. Some people, when they're talking about spirituality and neuroscience, they have conflict. Obviously, you didn't have that. How did you merge that and take it on board, and then obviously follow it through into Myron's knowing when things are right, even though you got no real grounded, say, physical information in front of you to know it, but it is just, we call it gut instinct because obviously words and language just don't work properly. So I don't know if you could address those two.
Okay. Oh, wow. Sure. In 15 minutes, I will. No, I loved what Myron said about feeling the sense of oneness in these sacred spaces. And I have felt it when I was in China and in a temple, and also in New Mexico, and a very ancient pueblo, which was abandoned by the Anasazi, the people who used to live there. Walking around there, I mean, I felt like I needed to whisper to my companions because we were in a sacred space. There is something about that, the state of consciousness, the awareness of our oneness that transcends our individual egos. And again, lots of research in neuroscience. There's a neuroscientist, Eben Alexander, who had a real infection of E. coli in his brain and was unconscious for a week. In terms of his ordinary ego self, the rational self, but what he experienced was a state of oneness. There's another neuroscientist, Jill Bolt Taylor, who has written a book called My Stroke of Insight. When she had a stroke, and again, the left side of her brain was out of commission, but the right side of her brain made her feel like she was in nirvana. And, she had to recover her function. And now she is aware that we have both. So there are neuroscientists who are seeking to explain the sense of oneness that transcends our ordinary ego consciousness. And way back in the Tao Te Ching, there's this sense of polarities, yin and yang, north and south, self and other. And it's not what we do in the Western world. The Western world has given us a lot of technology, a lot of great inventions, because we focus on ego, effort, and separation, and can make things, all kinds of devices. But this sense of oneness, combining yin and yang, it's not either or. It's both and recognizing that summer leads to fall, leads to winter, leads to spring, that there is this dynamic sense of flow of energies throughout nature, within and around us, that we're part of. And so to get stuck in only one polarity really inhibits us. It limits our ability to solve problems. We either have win or lose, all or nothing, either or, instead of coming together with the people that we have a conflict with and saying, what is one larger space that includes both of us? Where is our common ground? And I think that the sense of shared consciousness, recognizing that there's a larger reality that includes us all, can help us solve the problems that we face in the 21st century. And if we get stuck in our own individual egos, we get fearful and defensive and very limited in our thinking. Neuroscience tells us that when we're stressed, fight or flight, right? We get stuck. It shuts down our higher brain centers. We cannot think creatively. So for the good of our collective future, we need to connect with that larger, higher sense of who we are collectively and access incredible creativity and inspiration.
Oh, definitely. How did you merge them together? Because I know, as I said before, some people, they've had almost like kickback within their own mind that, for example, say we'd do a hypothetical on this one. One person's got a religion doctrine, and you come to them, you don't actually push any of the spiritual side or anything else. You just say, this is from the scientific side, this is about light, this is what happens on psychedelics and other bits and pieces, and there is something more than what's going on. They've heard the information, and for months they kind of bit grumpy about the whole thing. You haven't said anything at the time to be grumpy about, but they've been kicking about in their own heads going, no, that can't be right. Then they suddenly realize by integrating it with some of the parts of their religion, and it's made more sense now about the outer and more. So I just wondered how you coalesced within yourself and realized, and how did it make you feel at that point when you kind of combined neuroscience, the fact of what you felt and were guided by, and other factors?
Okay, well, since I was a child and had a taste of that sense of oneness and awe with nature, I wanted more. And I thought, well, maybe I can find it in books, right? So I got a PhD in Renaissance literature, but what I studied was spiritual development in the Renaissance. And I was drawn to the poetry of Thomas Traherne, who was a mystic, okay? And I was raised as a Catholic, which has, a lot of dogma and doctrine in it. But beneath the surface, there's this beautiful ritual of the Mass, which can be, transformative. And there are all kinds of mystics within the Catholic tradition who didn't just follow the rules. Notably, Saint Teresa of Avila, who used to have these mystical sense of union with the divine. Some people, there have been mystics throughout the ages who have managed to transcend the veil between our ego self and the oneness, and to reach into that oneness and to feel this sense of joy, delight, and absolute awe. So I kept studying them, I kept meditating, and tried to ignore the dogma and the doctrine in favor of the mysticism and the oneness in everything I did. And I do meditate, twice a day, and I study the Tao and also the Christian mystics, and there's a common ground there. So I haven't had a transformative experience like Myron did, for heaven's sakes. That is truly amazing. But I have had a spiritual quest to combine my separate self with the one, and to somehow make a difference, to be able to write about ways to connect with the greater sense of who we are all together. Does that make sense?
It does. And when I get tomorrow in a minute, but the whole factor that I feel, and there's a lot of people in the community who listen to the podcast, join in the events, they've all had this experience where they go, actually, it's not here to collect material things. You're here to learn through your own personal experience, whether it's good or bad. You learn lessons and psychological tools. Then you help others along the way out to lessen their grief, or help them through other things at the same time. So it's nice to hear that you're coming from the same angle as quite a lot of other people. Because in here, we're quite happy to have points of view which don't overlay, but nobody gets into a shouting match on it. They just will put those contemplative ideas on the table and go from there. So I'm really enjoying the information that you're providing. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, I'm delighted. I feel like, we're all here, as the Buddha said, to be awake, to wake up to the light, to discover our light, to discover the light, and to share the light with one another, because the world needs more light.
Oh, definitely. I know time is tight. I'm going to get Myron in, so we go from there.
Okay.
I just wanted to mention, since you were talking about Christian iconographies, and I used to go to Catholic churches when there was nobody around, because at least in the Catholic churches, they had the goddess there, as well as, so they had the male and the female. And sure, that was Christ and Mary, but so what? To me, it was just, the God and the goddess. And then I discovered mystics like Thomas Merton. I don't know if you know his work.
Oh, yeah.
And then Merton had gone to Japan and spent years meditating with the monks in Japan. And he came back to he was a Jesuit, so he came back to Rome after spending years in meditation with the Japanese. And he was talking to the Pope, and he was telling him what he had discovered about consciousness. And the Pope begged him not to write about it or not to release the writings for 25 years after his death. And because what he had to say was that during his time in meditation, all of the doctrine, all of the ideas of the doctrine had just dissipated, and he became one with the universe. And he said he had no other explanation except that consciousness came and was invited in and was accepted. And then there was a German, Dietrich Bonhoeffer. I don't know if you know who he is.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay. Well, and Bonhoeffer was saying a similar kind of thing, but from a completely different perspective. He wasn't Catholic. And so there are myriads of Christian mystics. And in fact, that's how I started in the mystic thing before I discovered the I Ching, or it discovered me is a better way of saying it. I do feel like that this energy is alive and it calls you to it. And wherever you're supposed to go to find the first step, the second step, the third step, whatever step it is, I think it calls you to those places. That's how I found the I Ching because I used to live in bookstores. Now there aren't any, but I used to live in bookstores, used and new. And Charon, my spirit guide, said, "You see that book over there? That black one there?" And I was at the bookstore of Carl Jung's foundation here in Los Angeles, and it was the I Ching, of course. And I bought it and immediately started reading it, and everything just sort of every page I turned was more insight. And so I think that two or three things are sort of necessary. One of them is just letting go of all of the ego trip stuff that people go through. Alan Watts was talking about that in a podcast I was listening to the other night. That just the fact that you let go. I mean, the ego. I mean, Jung said, you have to build your ego when you're young so you can function in the world, and then you spend the rest of your life getting rid of it. And I couldn't agree more, because that's been my objective since now I'm almost 80. And but the fact is that it seems that once you're on the path, as Joseph Campbell would say, when you're on the pollen path, once you're on that path, you can't get off it. If you really get on it, you really can't get off of it. You can get stuck in it, but you can't really leave it. And then while you're on it, it just brings you to things. You mentioned New Mexico. Well, I've been to New Mexico. I did a show in New Mexico, and just the countryside around Santa Fe and all that area was so numinous that I just again, it was one of those magic places on the planet, like the Grand Canyon, all the Grand Tetons, and on and on and on and on. You could go on and on. And to wrap this up, I just think that if you're open to the energy that is always available and never judges anything. My spirit guide never judges any stupid thing I do. I do some really dumb things, and Charon just when I meet up with her and I say, I really screwed that up. I'm sorry. She just says, we're not going to talk about that. We have things to do today. And so there's no judgment whatsoever. And of course, that's an antithesis to Christianity, but that doesn't make any difference. The point of it is forgiveness is part of that doctrine. So when my own spirit guide just doesn't care about those things, again, that's more the Tao Te Ching. It's much more Eastern than it is Western. And that's why I think that I was pulled so far into the East, even at 12, 13, 14 years old. And then I went to Vietnam on top of that, which I don't want to
I'm
talk
sorry
about.
to butt in, Myron, on this, but
Oh
I
my
know that
gosh.
obviously time is tight for Diane. I'm not sure how long you got left or not. I was just going to see from other people if they want to come in and give you feedback about what they've heard today and whether they would like to explore more your concepts and thoughts. It'd be good. The people that are speakers and also like Greybeard, Miro, and Dead Inside. So I'm not sure what goes on there. So how long do you roughly have now?
Oh, probably about 5 more minutes, and then I have to be off.
Excellent. So does anybody want to give feedback so far? If not, I will. I think most people are probably away from the actual mics. The content of information is fantastic from the way that we're seeing the overlap. And again, as you know, and I've said to you before, Diane, we'll probably have to explore this in greater detail in other places with more people and just reflect on what's gone on today. What's your feelings about what you've had as an experience today? You can be truthful, by the way.
Well, I feel very blessed and reinforced to be part of this conversation. I see that we are all on life's journey, and it's a journey for which there is no map for our ego to follow, but we're here to learn and discover. And, that's what's going on. And as the Tao Te Ching says, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and one step leads to another. And I've gotten some very interesting steps today, and I realize that we are on parallel paths. We're all headed toward the light, and I'm delighted.
It's fantastic because organically, as I have prior spoken to you about this, all the community that kind of tends together, they haven't listened to other kind of podcasts before, but those personalities that come in all are striving to find something else and help others or just learn from it all. And that's the beauty of it all. And as you were saying and talking, people were showing emoticons that they were obviously agreeing with what you were saying at the same time. And again, you're more than welcome to come back and discuss these kind of topics with us if you want. And again, this will be obviously on YouTube with the technical faults in between, but it will be live afterwards, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Beautiful. Thank you. It's been my pleasure. And I'm very grateful to be a part of this beautiful group and to be sharing this together.
Oh, thank you. And thank you very much for sharing your time with us. Tamar, did you want to say something on Myron or Alexi? Anyone who's on speaker? I always feel the room's crashed at this point when I ask these questions and no one responds.
Oh, no, I'm here. No, I don't have any questions now, but thank you for speaking.
Well, thank you. And
Yes.
I'm sorry I have another appointment because this is a beautiful place to be. And I'm grateful that our technology can bring us together on our spiritual path.
Oh, most definitely. And sorry, Myron, continue.
I just wanted to say it was great meeting you and speaking with a fellow traveler.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Excellent. Before you go, I think Alexi just wanted to say something. He got booted from the room because you just requested the mic, Alexi. I think Alexi's having technical issues. But once again, thank you very much for your time, and hopefully we can continue this discussion further.
Okay. Peace be with you all. Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye. So without all those technical difficulties, we've done very well getting onto the surface, glancing of the topic and seeing that quite a lot of our own personal journeys are actually kind of following the way, as in Tao. Miro, I'm going to pass you the mic. Greybeard, have you got the opportunity to talk? If not, throw the thumbs down emoticon. Dead Inside, if you want to talk, obviously thumbs up or hit the request to speak. That's not a problem. And obviously, Alexi, I'm not sure if you can actually hear us because when you requested the mic just now, you can't talk at the moment. Okay, that's fine. That's not a problem, Greybeard. That's fine. So yeah, we're evolving this further with the conversations. And as I was speaking to Laird, his health is improving so that we will be able to have this conversation, Myron, with Michael. And you've seen the email that I sent you.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, so he likes the structure of that. Obviously, we can discuss it before we actually do the event. And I think it's going to be a multi-parter, really, for the three of you discussing that and then people from the actual attendees putting further viewpoints in or information, because there is so much overlap within the way that things work. I don't know if anyone saw on YouTube the DMTX conference that was broadcast yesterday. Did you get to see it, Myron?
No, I didn't.
So these are the people that have been kept into intravenous DMT for 30 minutes. And as you know, if you were doing it for normal, either smoking it, it would be literally just a few minutes. So they're experienced people who are doctors, scientists, and also explorers. When they came back and did a 2-hour conversation, there was there was Andrew Glamour. There was also Anton, and I've forgotten his name. It begins with a B, his surname. But what I'm going to do is put the link in the actual nest. I'll kind of grab it now, hopefully, which would be good. It was just a really fascinating talk where they described the entities, the colors, the geometry, and how long it felt to be in there, and the fact that, again, everyone in the experiment over months that were doing it weren't allowed to discuss their own results with the others, but they're all coming back with very similar information. And within the actual DMTX, they had Graham Hancock as the moderator, and they had Rick Strassman there as well within the panel. So let me see if I can pull that up easily and not put audio into this particular link. Oh, I know, it's in an email, so I can go and grab that from an email. So when you're listening to them, it was just awe-inspiring. You couldn't bring anybody who wanted to get their toes wet in this project straight away, because there is too much information they would need to know before. Otherwise, they would find it being something akin to crazy talk, which wasn't a good idea at the time.
Well, if you're going to take that much DMT, you should have a physical before you do it.
They went through lots of testing before, which was amazing. Right, I found the link. I'm now going to copy it, because RN Voot, Anthony Peake, and also Mike Ferrito were in the chat rooms as well when that was going on. And obviously there's a lot of other people talking about this as it was going. All right, let's just get that link there. Take some text to make sure it makes sense for people. What's the best thing to call it? And it was hosted by...
Welcome, everyone.
We'll get this right. Noon Ortix, extended DMTX state. Let's see if we can get a nice link. Right, so just getting the text for it. So if I'm not looking at the right time when someone's saying something, that's the reason why it's sounding a bit odd and peculiar. All right, there we go. Just going to put in a few people in there. Let's get this right. Now we're posting it into the box. Hopefully the room still keeps intact, which is the one thing which it wasn't going to do. Aha, I can see it. So you should be able to see it in a minute if someone can confirm that it exists. At the moment, I can't see it on my screen. Myron, Tamar, can you see it? Ah, turned up now. There's a delay.
It's not on the screen, no.
It's probably turning up now. It's literally just turned up on mine with the delay. Tamar, can you see it?
Not yet, but things are kind of slow here too.
Yeah, I think they had technical issues today, because obviously last week when we were doing this, we had absolutely no issues whatsoever. And this is like the fourth room that we had to put together to keep it stable.
Yeah, there's a link. The link came up. So
excellent. That's good. In doing so, it's worthwhile watching. It's over 2 hours, and the content, I'm not sure if Dead Inside was there. I think he was, or has watched it. All right, so I got taken out again by audio. Yeah, so Dead Inside watched it as well. And just when I was discussing it with RN Voot, the author, today, the complexity and the solemnness of the people talking about it was phenomenal, because if you were looking at it that they were all lying, they're either very good professional liars, but the information they were giving was so genuine and heartfelt, and you could tell that they weren't saying it just because they were that person looking for like an ego boost. It was, I'm reporting back on this is what I found, and this is what happened. And Anton, who was in the actual discussion and had been in the actual program, was talking about the fact that during the winter time, they've been looking at a particular company to do business with. And they kind of umming and ahhing, he kept on bringing it up with people. And then one day he walks out into the snow in the front of his actual house, and there's a passport in the snow. Picks up the passport, brings it in, finds out who it belongs to, makes contact, and it turns out to be one of the major players in the company that they were wanting to talk to. It was kind of like one of those weird synchronicities that you couldn't predict that. And they had other major events, which I'm just going to see if I can spot the names in there so that when people listen to me talk about this, where are we? So as I said, they had Graham Hancock and also Andrew Glamour, and where are we? Keep looking through this text. Oh yeah, I might pronounce this incorrect. They had Carl Hayden Smith and also Jack, and his surname is ALLOCCA, which I don't know how to pronounce. Alexander Benya, and also Anton Bilton, that's who it was. So they were talking backwards and forwards about the information in the panel. And basically to the end, they were discussing the fact that they'd already had a panel discussion with other people a few weeks back, but this one had gone into more depth, them actually talking, one, about the experience of being intravenous and other things, but then also the fact of the entities and what they were getting and the informational flow and how that was coming. So if you get the opportunity, go and view it.
I would be interested in seeing it. So is this a link to it?
That's the link to it. I'll put it into the Facebook Messenger for you.
Okay, good. Because I'd like to see. I was going to see it, and then I missed it somehow because I haven't been feeling well, and I just but because I'm interested in the significance of what people see when they're on drugs, when they're on DMT or whatever it is, and if I hope that's what that they talk about that.
They did, yeah.
And then what do they mean and why do they see them? Because, I mean, I've been seeing things all of my life. And at some point, the significance of them starts to fade as you get more involved in universal consciousness. Images go away. They just aren't there anymore because you don't need them for anything.
That's what they were kind of saying, that it was a study group, as in once you go there and you start learning about it, you don't always have to always go back. And again, a lot of it was from the content that you've told us over the time period that we've known you and you've discussed within groups. We could see connections to the environments that you kind of go to and how it's talked about and the learning and the merging of it and the similarities of all the experiences that these people were doing. So, for example, Anton Bilton was actually done a lot of ayahuasca and other bits and pieces over the years, and the other ones have done psychedelics and measured and other areas to go into, and they've written books on it as well as being doctors in certain areas. And it was just amazing how they were talking, that it was kind of merging with what you have been describing. And you could just sit there and really learn a lot. I mean, Dead Inside agrees with me on this because as he was there, that you took away a lot from this content, didn't you? I don't know which emoticon you would like to use. If you're available to send an emoticon, Dead Inside, maybe not. But yeah, it's fascinating. So he's agreeing on that one. Have you got the opportunity to talk at the moment? If not, you can obviously throw me the downs thumb sign, Dead Inside. Yeah, that was 100%. Either throw me the down thumb sign or request to talk, and then you can obviously tell the rest of the room how you found that particular event. So he found it good at that point, so he can't obviously get point across there. But they're doing obviously more research. And again, it was Andrew Gillimore's research. I think he said it was 2016. He proposed it to Rick Straussman, and also the fact it was done at Greenwich here in the UK under their tutelage. And also you had David Luke, I think, was involved with it as well, one of the main players on it. So it's been going around and how they've been putting it together and proposing it. It'd be interesting to see if they go further with discussions with people, as in answering their questions in more detail, because this particular event, they didn't actually have time to take questions from obviously the YouTube channel, because I don't think when they were doing Zoom to YouTube, I don't think it flows back into the actual Zoom questions. Plus, they were tight for time as well.
It's going to be interesting to see if the government starts blocking some of this stuff, like they did LSD in the 60s. You know, at first you could take LSD and nobody said anything about it, and then after about 3 or 4 years, the government decided that they didn't want people doing that, and they made it illegal. But before that, it was perfectly legal to take LSD if you wanted to take it. When they were doing it at universities, of course, that's where they kind of started. Mixing the potion, as it was. And playing around with DMT is not unlike LSD in the sense that it opens consciousness and stuff. And there are people who don't approve of that.
True. Over here in the UK, there's been some big things that have got on my radar. There is a company called Clerkenwell Health, and they have joined up with GPs. So, for example, if you have PTSD, they're using psychedelics to help you with that. So you would contact them, fill out the form for the trial. They would contact your GP. Your GP would approve you. Then obviously the GP would administer the psychedelics to you in an environment that is correct. Then you would go back and report to them over a period of time. They're also doing another clinical trial at the moment, which they're looking for participants for people with persistent depression, and they're trying to do it the same way. They're doing many other ones, but also there was a report in the Telegraph, and we're going back probably a week. And at the moment today, as I said before, is the 25th of May, 2023, that they were saying that there's an 8 billion boom in magic mushrooms that's sweeping Britain. So they're looking at it for mental health and bringing it in that way, which is good. And then again, in another article, The Guardian, they started publishing about an individual, and he goes, a new start after 60. I had my first psychedelic experience at 68, and then goes on to talk about his experiences and what he viewed in the world. So there's a lot more allowing it to be mainstream in talking about rather than closed behind doors and whispered about. So it's fascinating to see how it's evolving at the moment.
Yeah, I hear that it's not quite as liberal. I remember in the 60s, all of this stuff was very popular in the 60s. Mushrooms, ayahuasca, all that stuff. Everybody was taking it like in droves. Yes, young people were.
Yeah.
And then some universities were studying it, and some particular people. But then the FDA got all upset about it, and then once the FDA got upset about it, then it became a political hot button, and that was the end of it. And then it was all of that was knocked down. In fact, the only place that you could do ayahuasca or any of those were on Indian reservation as part of their religious. So they went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, if they do this as part of their religious ceremony on the reservation, it's perfectly legal for them to use peyote or ayahuasca or anything else they want, but not off the. So that case was won. But believe me, for the first 4 or 5 years, everybody was doing everything, and then everybody was doing it underground after that.
Yeah, the fascinating thing is that obviously here in the UK, there's a lot of illegal stuff on the usually just growing your own and all those bits and pieces, but it's changing. I was asking people yesterday, I'm not sure if I asked, I think I did, yes. I asked yourself. One individual I know in LA was actually using a company called Flow Dose. So they're like microdosing with obviously psilocybin in capsule form and other bits and pieces, and they were getting very good results over a period of months. I'm always interested in finding out how their experiences are. Obviously, we need to know what the person's health is like normally, as in whether their functional biology is okay, and also then obviously how their mental health is, if there's a way of gauging what mental health is properly, and then what they found as a benefit, because again, enzymes and chemicals can benefit you, but also we found that placebos and nocebos can affect you. So it's always interesting on these areas. Tamar?
Yes, I remember reading, I can't remember how many years ago, that there's I think a DNA test to determine if you have genetic predisposition towards a particular mental illness. I can't remember if that was a saliva test or a blood test, but that would be something I'd hope they'd be employing.
Oh, definitely. What I also forgot to mention about the chat room in the YouTube video, there's a woman in there called Elizabeth, and I've forgotten her name. I have to skim through the actual chat. She was talking about the fact that her liver doesn't produce a certain inhibitor enzyme, so that her brain, DMT, for example, is always overloading, and she's always experiencing a strange world. She's an author. So that is a woman who is interesting in her replies within the chat room. And hopefully, if I get an opportunity, I did propose that we could actually talk to her and see if she would like to come and talk to us. But obviously, there was so much in the chat box, she might not have seen it at the time. But that is fascinating. And again, because if your enzymes don't work, you can't metabolize, like we said before. When it comes down to aspirin, some people don't have the particular enzyme to metabolize the tablet into the actual pain relief it needs. It just goes straight through and doesn't do anything. So there's all those kind of things to be considered. And
I think that's kind of what I was talking about, having, pre-physicals and all that kind of stuff before you be, ingesting that amount of DMT.
Especially for the time period.
Are these all medical doctors, by the way? These guys, different kinds of doctors?
I would have to say I'm not clued up on what doctor subjects they're in. I'd have to look up their names, but I can do that while we talk, which is always good. Let me just pick up Jack Alawaka, if I've got the right name. So when it goes on with these bits, and Diane Dreher's talk, and when you look at and the fact on the neuroscience she's into, and the fact that she seems to be coming from the same direction that we are all talking about, I find it fascinating. Hopefully everybody else does who listens to this. Okay,
well, I know that the gentleman that did the experiment with peyote at Johns Hopkins cleared it with the FDA before they put together the experiment with these 50 people that they gave peyote and ayahuasca, I think both, but I'm not sure about the second one. But they got permission to do it. And then they did the experiment, and then it was over 3 years that they because they were tracking how long these metaphysical feelings lasted, whether they faded over time or whether they increased over time. I mean, it's a wonderful podcast. The guy's really well known. I just can't remember his name off the top of my head, but they had to go to the FDA first, or Johns Hopkins did, and said, can we do this? And they said, yes, you can, and they did it.
Yeah, they would have to do that. They've done that here. Right. So Jack, ALLOCCA, PhD. He's a neuroscientist, machine learning engineer, psychedelic science, a speaker and a consultant. And it also goes into his bio saying that he is a researcher in the fields of psychedelic pharmacology. So that's one of them. And Carl Hayden Smith is known to Anthony Peake and also to R.N. Vu and the Dreaming Jaguars. I'm just grabbing a quick bio of Carl Hayden Smith. You can find him on Facebook easily. He is the co-founder of the Cyberdelic Society and London Experimental Psychonautic Club. Let's see.
So he's not a medical doctor.
I'm just quickly checking through. I'm reading paragraphs as we speak. Right. So he's also the director of Learning Technology Research Center and principal research fellow at the Institute for Creativity and Technology in Ravensbourne University, London. He's focused using both technological and biological means to alter and probe, study the spectral nature of consciousness. Carl has participated in the NN-DMT study at the Imperial College London for the last 6 years, most recently on the DMT X phase of the study. His research also explores the combination and functional sound within the application of psychedelics.
Oh,
And he's also raised over 10 million. Yeah, so he's got numerous large-scale projects, including hyperhumanism, contextology, and Holotechnica Academy. He has given over 300 public lectures, also conference presentations and keynotes in 40 countries, and published more than 100 academic papers. His research interests include the embodiment of cognition, spatial literacy, Omwelt, hacking, sensory augmentation, and perceptual diversity. So that's a good set of information there. Now let's grab Alex Benoit. Might have got the name wrong there. Quick search of the net, and here we are. Right. So Alex Benoit has researched shamanism in South America and Africa, campaigning for the legalization of plant medicines and the expansion of religious freedom. He has contributed to several major newspapers and journals beyond the basin in his first novel. Let's see what LinkedIn kind of says about him. Let's go for that. Contact, bio, writing, home. Where is he? There he is. Right. While I'm getting that up on screen. Right. So he's the author of The Bigger Picture, How Psychedelics Can Help Us Make Sense of the World, which is coming out in June 2023. He's the co-director of the Breaking Convention and founder of Rebel Wisdom. So if you're not familiar, Breaking Convention happens every 2 years here in the UK, where they have over 200 speakers normally. And Anthony Peake's spoken there, I think, and also many others that we know, which is good. And there's one more person I'm trying to grab their details.
Yeah, I'll be seeing Anthony in 2 weeks.
I think that would be great. They're also doing...
We're going to be at Contact the Desert.
I want photos and also postcards, please.
We'll do photos, that's for sure. I'll put them up on Facebook.
Excellent. So the other... All right, where's his definition? Where's the best way? Okay, here it comes. Right, so there's connections. Let's get this right. Oh, come on. So Anton is an international property entrepreneur, the third generation of Built-ons to be active in real estate development. He has built a reputation as a hardworking, innovative, and progressive businessman with extensive philanthropic and sociological interests. So that's probably why
it's
got the
interesting.
connections.
Here in the United States, a lot of the drugs are still illegal. Ayahuasca is illegal, mushrooms are illegal, all that stuff.
Same here.
And, and people talk about them in all of these groups and conventions like they are not illegal. And then they go out and find out that they can get busted.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's kind of...
really careful.
Especially what people have said to each other and how you utilize them. So, for example, if you said that you did psychedelics while driving down the street at 100 miles an hour, bad news, shouldn't be doing that. If you said it was part of a trial and these conditions and you were watched and you were monitored and everything else, and it's been sanctioned, then obviously that's good in those kind of things. By the way, nice to see you, Dave Green. You've just come in at the end of a conversation, but we were talking about Taoism and also talking to Diane Dreher, PhD, who was talking about that. If you want to speak, it's quite nice of you. You can just request. If you don't, you can always give me the thumbs down. I'm a emoticon, and we can go from there. But at the moment, we're just discussing how consciousness is, because that is the main thing of the community. When we get together, we like to explore what's happened with people. And it really does get very deep, doesn't it, Myron?
Yeah, well, Joe Rogan was talking with somebody, I forgot who it was, the other day about the fact that the government controls these drugs because they don't want people expanding their consciousness. I mean, they want control, and they want the chaos of control to give them power, and they're very against these kinds of experiments on almost any level, and that makes sense, because if if you free your mind, then you're not susceptible to all of the propaganda that goes across the screens and all, your phone and everybody else, everything else. And I mean, there's a device right here that's listening to everything I say. So, and there are devices, this phone listening to everything I say. So, anyway, in the United States, I don't know about the UK, but the United States is very conservative about allowing these kinds of events to take place, and it's unfortunate.
Definitely, it's very controlled. I mean, for example, we're probably going back 3 years that when they were trying to get CBD oil with a greater THC property to help with obviously epilepsy and seizures, it was only the most severe case people that were children that were able to get it, where obviously they found that in pain management, certain dosages not being too high in the THC bit did actually really help and balance the pain management. And those lots of people were trying to apply to get it through their GPs and they couldn't do it. It was really being really controlled to the extreme, which is quite, well, it's saddening for me for those people that really require it, etc. So, as I can imagine,
it's also the drug company that are lobbying here in the States. It's all these drug companies that lobby congressmen to keep these laws in place. So we finally, got it so that people could smoke pot and all that kind of stuff. And in fact, you can buy it right down the street here. I mean, it's legal in California, and pot is actually an anticonvulsant, so it does work against seizures.
And they use it for Parkinson's. I've seen it being used on a guy who's, totally shaking, and within less than 20 seconds of inhalation, the shakes are gone, and he's almost got, 20 minutes worth or a couple of hours of not having an issue.
Yeah, this friend of mine that was been living with me for 4 years, who was supposed to die of cancer 4 years ago, who didn't. She was using pot. Now, some of the pot she was using, they had taken out the hallucinogenic part, but it still worked. And it's really a shame that some of these. Now, you can go to Mexico if you have money. You just go across the border, and you can do whatever you want to do. You can do ayahuasca, you can do mushrooms, you can do whatever you want as long as you're in Mexico. But as soon as you cross back across the border, and your car gets searched, you better not have any of them.
Oh, definitely. By the way, hello, Ian. Nice to see you back again. Miro, you had your hand up.
Hello. I just want to say,
Ian.
hello. I just want to say that things are changing regarding
Is there an Ian, or is it the picture?
Okay, Miro's talking. Can you hear Miro, Myron?
No.
Can you hear me? You nobody
just says
can hear.
Listener.
You cannot hear me?
Miro, I can hear you. Myron can't hear you, which is interesting. I'm just going to check to see if Ian and Tamar can talk. Ian, good evening.
Hey, buddy. Hey, Myron. Hey, everyone. How you doing?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, you're not doing...
Okay, Ian, can you hear Miro?
I can hear Miro. I can hear Myron. But
Okay, that's good. Myron's just been put in the sin bin for a minute. Tamar, you can hear everybody, or?
Yes, so far.
Well, you've been booted out multiple times by the software. So, Myron, you can't hear anyone apart from myself at the moment.
Yeah, no, I can hear a couple of people, but I can't hear the ones that I can't hear Ian, and I can't hear any of the others that so far.
Okay, try again, Ian. I'll let you have the floor.
Can you hear me now, Myron? Because you're coming across to me really, really clear.
Do you hear him?
I can hear Myron.
Yes, I can hear him well. He can hear you. Maybe if you pop out the room, then come back in again, it might connect up properly.
If I go out the room, I'll never get back.
Well, if I leave the room, the whole room goes with me. I'm just going to stay here for a while.
You better stick around.
Yeah, I'll watch for you. So, Miro, you were saying?
I just was saying that there are changes for psychedelics now. Now, here in Canada, they are still illegal, but...
Maybe if I turn off my...
Okay.
Well, it doesn't turn on.
Hang on, Myron. I'll see if I can mute you now from my end. Right.
Okay.
So
Now we are-
I've just removed Myron from speaker. We get Myron to request to speak again. And in that moment, we have Miro talking.
I was just trying to say that things are changes for the psychedelics. Here in Canada, they're still kind of illegal, but they are not enforced. I can buy them online, anytime, no problem, whatever I want. I can, and there, I just read week or last week, they opened dispensaries in Toronto, also in Vancouver, and some other places. So they're still not 100% legal. They might get, but things are going. They are moving, and also they are using psychedelics here in Canada in the research, quite intensively. And as per US, I think in Oregon was legalized, psychedelics were legalized, and in California, you can kind of legally subscribe for ayahuasca ceremony. My daughter was already twice. It is about $400 or something like that for session. And so it is acceptable if you really want. In States, you can buy also psychedelics online, but there's a little bit more pressure there. You have to have a cryptocurrency, and so on. Some guys, so it's not so easy like here in Canada. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, the problem. Oh, I can't speak anymore. Oh, okay. The problem with
Yes, you can. You can
California
speak.
is if you have the drug in your car, and it's legal here, because it is. Some of these are legal in California and some of them. But if you drive across the border and they stop you for some reason, you can be arrested. I mean, it's just nuts because it's state by state by state by state by state. So if you go up to Oregon, you can smoke pot, you can do what you want. If you cross over into certain other states, you can be arrested. I mean, it's so ridiculous because they haven't passed a universal law. So it's all down to the states. So if you're going to go across the border, then you have to do something with these legal drugs that are legal in California. You can't take them across the border into Arizona. You can't do that. So, I don't know about UK. I don't know how it works there, but here, every state is autonomous when it comes to certain kinds of things, and these drugs are one of them. So you have to sort of do some homework if you're going to go somewhere and find out whether it's legal or illegal.
Oh, definitely. I'm glad that you can hear Miro, which is good.
Yeah.
Now let's see if you can hear Ian.
Hey, bro, can you hear me now?
Hey, I can hear you.
Superb. Hope you're well, buddy. Hope you're well, Myron.
We haven't isolated him.
No, it sounds like Ian, or it's a recording.
No, that's me.
I don't think I don't have any good tapes of Ian to just play when he's not here, which wheel in a recording now. Ian, I don't know if you had the opportunity yesterday to go through the YouTube DMTX YouTube video of 2 hours. Did you see that?
No, dude, I haven't had a chance to catch up on anything. I'm sorry.
No, that's the one where they've been keeping people in for half an hour intravenously.
Oh, okay.
It's that big report.
What did they find from that?
They found a lot about entities and similarities between each of their own journeys, because obviously they weren't allowed to cross-pollinate information after having the experiences, and also the fact of the geometry, the messaging, and the way that they're talking about it all. As I said before, it's all very genuine. No one's trying to say, oh, look at me, I've done this. This is what the information is. It's like going to school. Sometimes they see you there as if you're coming there. And as one example was given by Anton Bilton it's like if you see a wounded pigeon in the road, the kids might try and run around it to go and look at it. And we're talking like these are like entities, but like the adult kind of figure comes in and says, don't do anything until we know whether it's got a problem or not. And then say the pigeon flies away. They don't actually touch. So the entities don't do that. But he had one particular experience, which I've just remembered, where when he was under, he was kind of viewing forwards, but the entities were behind him, and he felt they were kind of examining the back of his neck to see if he was still connected to something. And his impression was they were trying to see if he was still connected to this realm, or if he had been disconnected and he was on the nextward journey. And within that environment and time, he felt that if it was disconnected, they would have started doing other things with him to prepare him. So that was a really interesting exploration of his experience.
Fair play. Yeah, I'll have to catch up on all of that. Thanks.
Oh, it's not a problem. But it's good that you're here, which is nice. And what did you think of Diane Dreher's information?
It was really good. Yeah, I was trying to do too many things at once, so I don't know how much of it I absorbed. But yeah, I thought she was a really lovely person, and I hope you get it back when I'm actually able to sit down and pay attention.
She is. It was her first time in a public Twitter space, as in one of these kind of environments. It crashed 3 times and she came back every time, which was good. And she's got a good sense of humor, the content of information. If people go and look her up as Diane Dreher, PhD, the fact that I think, if the top of my head's correct, her husband's also a neuroscientist as well. So she's connected all over the place with giving webinars, psychological help. She's part of HeartMath, which is one of the things that we've been discussing previously, and just trying to make sure that people become connected. As mentioned, Tao is the way. It's make sure that, you know, plants, everything else, you respect everything and go that direction, which is good.
Yeah, I very much got that from her and Myron. Yeah, no, it's really good stuff. Really good stuff.
So she hopefully will want to come back. She enjoyed it. Her only thing was that she had another appointment, so that was the only reason she left. But she was saying to everybody in the room that finding like-mindedness without, let's say, trying to appease her, everyone seems to be on the same kind of journey and wanting to do the same thing without listening to other people's journeys prior to her being in here, if that makes sense. It all seems to naturally flow that way.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, yes. I do understand what you mean. Yeah, people are weird like that, aren't they? But I think we're all reasonably grounded. Well, some of us are. I don't know about myself, to be honest. But yeah, I think that makes the difference, doesn't it? But yeah, no, it's really positive that she had that experience. So yeah, it's really good.
It's also interesting
because when
she'd read a lot of the old books, you know, so she.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, like Bonhoeffer and you know, and Thomas Merton. You know, they have those books have been out years ago. I mean, I think he died 40 years ago, and Bonhoeffer was killed by Hitler. So you know, he stopped writing in 1945 when he was executed. But it's amazing that people still know these names of these people. That, of course, they know Socrates too, and he's a little older. So it was just kind of fascinating to talk to somebody who's read what I've read. You know?
Well, that's the beauty of these kind of organic meetups of minds, because how Diane Dreher got put in touch with me was that Rick Herrick, who is the author that we had who did the books and found meditation at a very early age because he couldn't find what he wanted through Christianity. He found the meditation through Eastern bit.
Right.
She works at the same university that he did. And prior to actually coming onto our event, just the back and forth and the verbal exchange that we had for a half hour to an hour, he said, "Oh, I know of Diane Dreher. She'd be really fascinated by the topics that you're doing." So she actually had listened to a few of the other podcasts that we've done, as well as listened to Rick's, and then still wanted to come and play in our sandbox and discuss these topics, which I think is just fantastic. And if you go online and put in her name and do podcast, there's so many good ones of her talking about her books, her early development and where she went around the world and life. But in here, I thought it's best to go the way that we normally do, is explore the inner feelings of the person, how it connects, not a standard kind of interview, but have anchor points for taking the topics of the conversations in a larger scale.
Well, especially like,
and hopefully we did that.
Talking about animals, you know, I mean, I wasn't expecting, and that was cool. It was really cool. Talking about consciousness and animals and how they're been treated and evaluated, and how screwed up that all was. And so it's really kind of cool that part of the conversation at the beginning, and that was thrilling. I really liked that.
Oh, it laid a nice groundwork. And if anyone's new to, obviously, the Perceptions Today podcast, on YouTube in the live section, you'll find that this one is now still continuing, unedited, obviously. But later on, when we finish this space and many months down the line, I'll finally get to editing and then put it up. Oh, talking about editing, in June, there's a 4-episode coming out from our Twitter Space Chat 11 with Gabe Miranda, talking about decoding the strange. So if you've been waiting for that one, it's finally coming out.
Decoding.
Nobody's been waiting for
that title before.
Yes, because you were there. It was Gabe Miranda Senior.
Okay.
So Gabe, part of our community, came in and talked about his dreams, the fact of precognition in it, sleep paralysis, and also nightmares and things like that, and all those kind of connections. That went for 5 hours, but it boiled it down to about 4 hours and a half editing.
Right.
Mira, you had your hand up.
I just a little bit add to consciousness as animals. I think the animals are conscious was known for millennia, because it is described also in Puranas, what I'm reading. You know, and how I understand Puranas, there is also describe how actually evolution happened, and because I saw those deities as a conscious vectors, vectors on consciousness, so they were also in process of creation. They were also created conscious for each animal, for fish, for, whatever, snakes, whatever. So that was, so I would just want to say that animals are conscious. Consciousness of animals came from same source as our conscious. So they should be able to have same feelings as we have. They might not have same level of awareness that we have, but they are similar to us.
Oh, most definitely.
On YouTube there are a lot of I subscribe to a lot of animal videos, and what they do is just unbelievable. Like this mother tiger, there's a wild tiger now, not domesticated. This wild tiger came out of the jungle, found this guy, and wanted his assistant to get her cub out of this bind sheet that the cub was in with a bunch of wire and stuff. So she came all the way. This is a tiger. This is a big animal, and the guy followed the tiger and freed the cub, and they went off, having a wonderful time. I mean, that's just incredible. That
Oh, definitely. There's also other ones where I've seen squirrels coming up to hikers who got bottles of water, asking for water.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. Gabe Miranda, the man I've been talking about. By the way, Peter Rostow, I don't know if you've actually been to one of our events before. We do have guidelines here. They're very basic is family-friendly language. If you want to talk, put your hand up. That'd be good. And we get everyone kind of having the opportunity to talk. So that's there for you. So, yeah, I mean, Myron, there's so many online ones where different animals have come up from different species, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah,
Pete?
it's just part of.
Sorry, Maureen.
It's just part of that whole misconception about what animals are and what they feel, and that we slaughter them by the millions to eat, and that's what it is. But the fact is that they have a unique ability for empathy. I mean, that's a heavy duty thing, empathy.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, you can even take it down to plants as well, and the way that they respond to bits and pieces as well. I mean, that gets even more crazy. I mean, at the end of the day, it would be really good if, obviously, we need to survive by consuming other things, but only consume the quantity that is required and utilize all of it to the final bit. That kind of routine. It's very difficult otherwise. So, Pete, first time seeing you, or have you been here before under a different name?
Oh, no, I only have one name, and I follow Tamara in here, and she invited me to the space. And,
she's going to vouch for you. That's good.
Well, no, not vouch for me. No. Just just we've talked before, and I haven't. And she told me about this space, and I was like, oh, cool. But does anybody here understand when I say quantum entanglement?
Yes, there's a few of us in here that do. Yeah. Can I just quickly ask you a few questions to get a basic knowledge about yourself? You don't have to answer them. Right. So have you read about...
I'm open.
Okay. Have you read about what this account's about and our ethos?
Only what Tamar sent me. And it seems very, very interesting.
Okay, so the overview is, I don't know what Tamara sent you, but we deal in looking to consciousness research from people with questions, people who are researchers, people who've had experiences, and we tend to get together and discuss it in a nice, thoughtful manner, which then turn into podcasts or YouTube videos and things like that. And this is where the interaction is. So please remember that you're being recorded at this point in time, and it's going out that way. And we got loads of people that, if you're interested in consciousness, that I can point out in the room what their specialities are.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. So Myron is an artist. He also has epilepsy, which in that state, he has, what should we call them? Otherworldly experiences.
Yeah, to say the least.
And he actually sees, are we going to call Karen an avatar? As for language is very difficult.
You can call Karen, a spirit guide or an avatar or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not being disrespectful. That's the main thing. Yeah, it's difficult to put to people who haven't listened to you or explored, because I don't know how much, Pete, you've looked into different things. So I'm trying to be very generalized. Then you have Mira, who's very knowledgeable on Eastern and consciousness. Greybeard is an experiencer of epilepsy as well as a good researcher and looking into things. Gabe Miranda is into his dreams and decoding them in the ways that they are nightmares, also sleep paralysis and other experiences he's had. Again, Tamara, and Ian, what's the best way to describe you, my co-host?
I'm actually an astrophysicist, but I've studied maths and physics and astrophysics. I guess that's fair.
Myself, I've gone through strange experiences as a child that have perceptual differences through accidents and other bits and pieces. Done a lot of research in all areas. Basically, we've ended up here at this point with just looking into things and discussing them in nice, thoughtful discussions. So that's it, Pete, in a very short space of time.
That's really cool. Can I say something real quick?
Oh, sure. And also, I forgot Alexei. Alexei's in Russia. He's under Twitter, user number, very good researcher, and Dead Inside, who's also very knowledgeable on psychedelics. So please continue. Yeah.
Who's Alexei? Which one?
So Twitter it's Twitter user, and then 4 you'll probably see as a icon. It's a face, as in two eyes and a nose.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to follow everybody. But I went down the rabbit hole about 2 months ago about quantum entanglement, and I watched the Einstein's Quantum Riddle on PBS. It's an hour-long show, and I'm sure Ian knows all about this. And then I got into another show that basically talks about quantum gravity and explains that quantum entanglement is the same as a black hole. And in other words, they're a quantum entanglement where two particles are interacting with each other across different, time periods or space periods is the same as a black hole. And these researchers actually made a very small black hole and didn't destroy the universe in the process. And but going down this hole that I've been on, it really has made me understand a lot of things that, forgive my crows in the background, I'm sorry. But
I was just about to say synchronicity. We've been talking crows this morning. Well, wherever you are, whatever time period.
Yeah, well, no, I'm in Southern Oregon, and I feed my crows peanuts every day. But I got a whole.
I love crows.
But anyways,
love them.
And they're so intelligent. They just heard me. But anyway, so I just wanted to say that through quantum entanglement, it has made me understand that we are all connected. This space right now is a quantum entanglement.
Can I ask you quickly, are you familiar with the Quantum and Gravity Research Institute?
Yes.
Have you watched their YouTube videos of what is a hacking reality and also E8?
No, I haven't, but I'd love to.
I'm just about to grab the links and throw them into your inbox. I've given, very quickly, are you familiar with the UK author Anthony Peake?
Yes, I've heard of him. Yes.
Okay.
But I haven't. I'm not read on him.
That's fine. I've given you a video of him for half an hour talking about basically neuroscience, memory, and where he thinks life is, etc. Are you familiar with Dr. Penny Satori?
No, but I will be after you send me stuff.
Yeah, that's into your box. She basically, as a nurse, saw her patients have near-death experiences. She then decided to follow it up from as she's in her training stages, and she's done over 25 years in this area and very well qualified in her research. Then there's another one.
Well, you mentioned near-death experiences, and I can't go on without. Would you like to hear mine real quick?
I think we probably will. I'm quite happy with that. I'm just checking with people.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yep. Please continue.
I'll do. Well, first of all, I want to say that we're all connected. Okay, all the animals, the trees, and human beings are trying to deny their being connected. So we have sort of removed ourselves from the connectivity grid. Blah, blah, sorry, but we, through spaces and through meditation and other things like that, are starting to reconnect to it. And once enough people connect to it, I think we'll reach critical mass, and that will be our next evolutionary process. But anyways, back to my near-death experience. I was in a very bad motorcycle wreck in 1993. And I don't want any sympathy out of this. I'm a Marine. I'm just telling you because I want to share this with you.
That's fine. We understand, because you're telling facts. You're not looking for the emotional part. And that's really key to looking at these kind of experiences. Yeah.
So I got run over by a car, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so I was in the intensive care in a semi-coma. They called me Houdini because I managed to remove an esophageal breathing tube with my tongue. And they had to tie me down to the bed to keep me from running away. And they said if I could, I'd have taken the mattress and walked away with it. But anyway, so during this time, when I was in a semi-coma in the ICU, I woke up, and I'm ex-Marine, so I woke up in a GP large, which is a big hospital tent. And there was a row of people next to me and a row across the tent from me, and they were all in various stages of disrepair. And some had blood, some didn't, some were just no signs of any injury, just laying there. And I went, wait, something's wrong. I'm not supposed to be here. And I went up to the little nurse station in the front of the tent, and I said, and of course it was Clockwork. No, not a Clockwork Orange. But anyways, the one with Jack Nicholson, where they have the big stern Nurse Ratched, I think it is.
Oh, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah. Anyway, so I was confronted by Nurse Ratched, and I said, I'm not supposed to be here. And she, in her Nurse Ratched voice, said, yes, you are. Go lay back down. And I went, no, I'm not supposed to be here. And we argued for maybe minutes, maybe hours. And finally, out of exasperation with me, she went, okay, go over there. Yeah. And I went over where she told me to go, and I came out of the coma.
I mean, that is phenomenal. We've had quite a few experiences of people. I'm not sure if Tamar's told you that Myron had almost, you reckon, about a 4 to 5 month coma?
Yes, about 4 months.
Yeah, so that was almost like his near-death experience with the bits and pieces that he's had there, and we've had others that have had that kind of instruction, and it's phenomenal how things work, especially how the human body works, and for yourself to, one, physically get your tongue muscle to get rid of that tube. That is a neat trick in its own right, but with the information, and again, lucky enough, you're in a room where we try to make sure no one's trying to pull the wool over anybody else's eyes, and we're being genuine with people, because there's no point building relationships on falsehoods within content. So that's one of the beauties of this. And if you do have the opportunity, or it doesn't have to be now, it can be anytime, check out some of our actual podcasts, because you'll hear about Myron's life, you'll hear other bits, and it's not just interview style conversation. Because we're a community and we do roundtable, there is so much that comes into it, and you find overlaps, and people find amazing nuggets of gold which we weren't looking for. I'm just going to ask my co-host, and he can be completely truthful on this one, and I will also ask other people, because otherwise it just sounds like I'm blowing this community's own trumpet. Ian?
Yeah, sorry. What was the question? Sorry, Dee.
No, it's okay. It's just beautifully done for comedy there. I like that. I was saying about the fact of we're not like any other environment that's a straight interview. It's more of people coming in, overlaying, and then finding nuggets of gold within conversation without actually realizing. And you just added to that. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, what you said is correct. It is weird how many, well, I suppose if you don't speak to anyone and only one person is speaking, then you're not going to have that mix of ideas or events and things happening. But when they do, it is quite weird how things cross paths and, you know, come together for different people, like the crow thing. It's, yeah, pretty cool.
I have to get Gabe Miranda in, because we haven't spoken to him for a while. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
Can I give you some good news that your Chat 11, your podcast will be dropped throughout of June, all 4 episodes.
Okay, that's great.
I've succeeded in doing my task that I wanted, which is a fantastic one.
Okay.
Especially the fact that in kind of episode 1 and 2, Gabe has to go off to the vet for an hour. So we just fill in space with other conversations within, all on topic. And it's great. And we didn't know whether Gabe was going to come back for part 3 of that episode, but he did. I don't want to put any spoilers in.
Okay. Yeah, it was quite the adventure that day, yeah.
Oh, very much so, especially as you didn't know that you were going to be doing these tasks.
Right.
I mean, Tamara, you find this an interesting environment to other places.
Oh, of course. That's why I keep coming back.
And she's a long-term listener. She's got a badge with loads of gold stars, same as Myron and Miro and Greybeard and Alexi and Dead Inside, and obviously Gabe. Because the community is quite large, and you would think that every time that we do one of these events that nobody would turn up. But over time, people are either turning up when they've got the opportunity, or they're tuning into the actual podcast content, whether it's gone out live on YouTube or whether it's the actual edited version I put up later on, and they pick up so much, and it's quite phenomenal in that way. And having Ian as a co-host and Central Awareness from Australia turning up at 4:00 in the morning, which is just phenomenal. And she's not scripted or even contracted to come as a co-host, or Ian is, but to get up at 4 a.m. for the last 2 weeks has been quite amazing. So hopefully, Pete, that kind of fits in with the things that you like discussing and thinking about.
Oh, spot on.
That's good. Because what the other thing was, we found there's a lot of people who have the 9 to 5 thinking, and they must get through the day, and they don't have time to think about other things. If you happen to be one of those people that want to discuss other things with these 9 to 5 people, they will either try and not do it because it scares them to think too far that there is something more than just this existence. We've been looking at it from the scientific point of view, people's experiences and all kinds of things. But lucky enough, organically, we've all got together and we discuss these things, and we're open to other things. We're not just putting this is the only way down as the pathway. There are some other little trails which will take you to the final destination, but it's the people you pick up and talk to along the way that make it so special.
That's what I've said all along. It's not the money that you have, it's not the status that you have, it's solely the people that you meet along your journey and connect with.
That is, again, the amazing thing. And again, when you find out that the universe puts you in positions that you may think are terrifying, like accidents, like yourself, you've been through those, but you've learned things after those incidents for your own like psychological tools to do things. But that's then allowed you to meet other people, where if you didn't have that accident, the events would never have taken place to meet, say, person down the road that you met the other day. You know, it's those kind of strange things.
I often say that the accident was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah, we hear that a lot as well, and things change entirely in that way. Oh, there's so many questions that I want to ask you, but that would just take us on for a few more hours. What we are doing is we're doing another one in July. We're having a gap in June. And then we go a bit more regular with them. The reason why we're doing gaps is basically health on my side, just making sure things are okay, and also going along with getting the right people to come and discuss things, because it's a marathon, not a sprint on this information gathering. And it's becoming a really fascinating archive, I think, for us all. And I'm going to ask other people's opinion about this that we put together, because they are the ones contributing. I'm mainly the moderator and host of it all, but the content is phenomenal. And I don't know who wants to go first to talk, if I'm spouting or whether people agree with me on this or not.
Well, I absolutely agree. I mean, think about this morning, we were going to talk about consciousness, and we ended up spending, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes talking about animals and how their consciousness works, and our intersection with them. And then there was the wonderful thing about crows, and I mean, it was so interesting that subject came up. And I've listened to other podcasts where people just scream at each other. There's a lot of people on the podcast, but I've heard people just talk over each other and scream and yell, and they don't have guidelines. And if they do, they don't have it. They don't obey them. That's for sure. But just this morning, just the fact that this was about Taoism and consciousness, and we ended up for 20, 30 minutes talking about consciousness and animals. Yeah, it was just fascinating. And she was so smart and so brilliant about it. That really helped. And then we get this other person who comes in who out of nowhere and loves crows and collects them and talks to them. And, that song, If I Could Talk to the Animals. Well, I guess people talk to the animals. So.
Oh, definitely.
Anyway, that was my point, was that these conversations go a lot of different directions. And that's what makes them so interesting.
And we tend to not script the kind of questions that we have from the people, the attendees that turn up. We have a flow of knowing where we want to go and have a few kind of staging points of, yes, we want to describe consciousness. How do you feel about it? What's your emotional state? And if people are happy to discuss that, then we get an understanding of that individual, or we're talking about the books of what's influenced you, or the people or the events that have happened that have changed your way of thinking to include new pathways. And that just really fascinates me, because obviously, one, I've had weird experiences, and so like blood flow restriction that caused me a load of problems, but also got me on the pathway as a young child looking at all these bits. So again, with yourselves all in here having the same kinds of, how should we put it? They are massive events in your life, but you don't realize they are, and they put you down a pathway of exploration, which is not everyone's taking it, and not everyone can accept it quickly. Sometimes it takes years for them, sometimes it doesn't at all. It's that kind of thing. I think you'd say that, wouldn't you, Ian?
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I was just remembering Myron's stories from earlier. Holy crap, that messed me up, man.
I told you about family language.
Sorry, that's not a swear word.
Context, boy, context. Anyway, and I just won't make my editing any harder. But yeah, it's good on those facts, and it's nice that people want to come back and actually talk about it. As Dead Inside was throwing emoticons as he can't speak at the moment, saying how much he enjoys it. I've had direct messages from him over periods of time. And it's just nice that everyone around the world just connects up. And again, it's like mycelium, as we talk about, that way that we just find kind of a semi-unity, but we're not all trying to think one way and just go, I want to be that group. The people here will go out and investigate other podcasts, researchers, other information, talk to those people, come back and then talk to us. We don't kind of put a perimeter fence around people and say you can't get out. You can only talk to the people in here, which could be a problem in some scenarios. Ian?
Yeah, it's much better that way. Much better that way.
Oh, definitely. Ian?
I was just going to say, I started off with a lot of podcasts and a lot of people saying a lot of things that I thought were quite good things to hear at the time. But actually, I've had to cull off quite a few. And there's only really sort of a couple, really, that I'd say that are worth listening to. No, it's a bit ingenuous. It's more than a couple. But it's certainly not the myriad of shows all covering, consciousness the way that you do it. It all sounds really good to start with, though, I'll tell you what. But, yeah, if you pay attention, it really sort of really comes down to like a few topics and a few shows and how they handle them, to be fair. But there you go, live and learn, right?
Definitely, and thank you. The other thing is that we try to, when we're doing topics, we'd do them as a layperson's overview, so that it gives them the idea that either they want to dip their toes in further and look at the topic, or run away for a while and then contemplate. And sometimes we will say that we're doing something even more in depth when we gauge who we're talking to. And that really does work well. And people will say here that they give up hours of their time to come and sit in these environments, because the conversations with the people, you could never do them in an hour. And even if we're doing them in 3 hours plus, we're still not really scratching the surface, but we are finding a lot of good, I have to say, content. We're not a lot of fluff of information. There's not a lot of candy floss kind of information there. It's all really good, solid kind of info about life experience, other cultures, and all that kind of connectedness.
Well, I think if you have if it's one-on-one, then an hour or an hour and a half works okay. But when you've got a lot of people that chime in and talk, then an hour and a half isn't going to do it, because they spend, like me, I'm a blabbermouth. So it takes, I talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and then other people talk. But all that information is so good and so like Shadow Fox and people like that, by the way, how is her husband?
At the moment, I haven't heard any further details, which I think, fingers crossed, that is a good sign. And hopefully I'll be able to catch up with her soon. But I haven't been around on the social media platforms enough to pick up what's going on. But that was kind of, obviously it's a difficult patch when things like that happen. But being at home sounds like it's better, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to visit a friend of mine when this is over. He had 9 strokes a week ago.
Wow. Was that in a very short period of time, or over a number of days he had those 9?
No, just all at once. 9 strokes. Bam, 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 bam.
Wow.
He's still alive. He's a tough old Marine. That's what he is. He's a Marine that was in the Korean War.
Well, you have to take across all our positivity as well, because for anyone who's going through anything, we always send positivity to them to try and help them out. Miro.
Just a note out of the topic. Colin has already option for video stream, and I met a group of Colin, and we were watching movies together. And then you can option. We were commenting it as the movie was going on. We were able to comment it on chat site. It's better. You have to do it on a laptop, I guess. I cannot chat in phone. So just option. Maybe. As a group, we can watch some movie, maybe this one, what you post, and chat about that.
Oh, definitely. We've got the option in July the 11th with Joshua Cutchin, who will be live, and we're going to be trying call in for that. I'm going to test it out with him prior to the 11th, and so people will need to get an account on callin.com to come to that one and actually talk to him. But with those, again, with anything like presentation style, anything like callin.com and Zoom are all very well useful. Obviously, Zoom you have to pay for. Callin.com is free, and you can create it into podcasts as well, which is great from all those things. I have to say that we're close to time, got another 5 minutes, and thanks for everyone turning up. Does anybody have anything to say at this present time?
I just want to ask a question, and that's
Sure.
What's the legality of broadcasting somebody else's podcast on your site, not to make money or anything, but just to broadcast it? I mean, like Joe Rogan.
Good question.
Would he freak out if
you would you would need to do it under fair use, and I certainly wouldn't. You need to it's a bit like copyright. So if you want to take a quote from say an essay, it's good practice to take, say, 10% and not take 75% of the thing and use that as a quote. So if you're going to use someone's podcast, you would be talking about a point, then you would play a bit of his podcast where he discusses it. That's fair use. But to just play his whole podcast on your podcast, I think you might get a few dirty looks, especially from YouTube and stuff like that. I wouldn't. I mean, you can always ask permission, right? If you ask the dude, is this fine? And he says, yeah, go for it. You got no worries. Just do that. That's what I suggest. But without having... Sorry, go on.
From the monetary point of view, say you always had a podcast and it was an hour long, then you just decided to play somebody else's podcast within your hour and not say anything, then you're going to get into trouble if you've made money out of your hour's worth of the people listening to you.
Yeah. Right.
But the cutting it up, like Ian says, then you get the kind of fair use bit, because you're adding either commentary to it, as in, this is what I think about this particular thing they've said. And again, it's always probably best to talk to the individual.
Yeah.
I was watching a podcast the other night, and it was and Anthony was talking to these two guys, and one of the two hosts said, hey, well, I want to hear what Myron has to say about it. And they had a screen up, and all of a sudden, bam, there I was talking. Now, nobody asked me if they wanted to do that or not, or whether I wanted to do that or not, or whatever. But they did it 2 or 3 times. So they had cut it out of some podcasts I guess I'd done with Tony. I guess that's what they did. And then they put it up. But they didn't ask me about it. They just did it.
Well, if it was Anthony's podcast,
I wasn't mad or anything. I just didn't know what the legality of I could do.
I think because it's through Anthony's podcast, if they took it from his, then he could have said that, but there should have probably been courtesy-wise of saying, I'm going to do this, is it okay, kind of routine. Ian?
In this instance, yeah, I think so, because it would have taken no time for Anthony just to have made Myron aware that he was doing that. But let's say it was a different podcast and they did that, they would cite fair use. And if you said, hang on, I'm not happy about that, you could prohibit them from doing it in the future. But there wouldn't really be any, if they weren't. So if let's say that came from a podcast you did that was just you talking, say, and it was an hour long, and they just didn't cut it up. They sort of said, oh, let's hear what Myron has to say. And they played the whole thing from start to finish. Yeah, you could turn around and be like, that's not quite on. And so could the person that created the podcast. But in this instance, if they were just taking little sound bites and talking around it, then, they'd probably just claim fair use on that. But Anthony really should have been a little bit less heavy-handed with that and just asked you, I mean, there would have been no harm in doing that, and I think that would have been a nice thing to have done.
Is fair use, is that term ubiquitous to all countries, or is that just UK or what?
Yeah, I believe so,
to America as well. It's also the YouTube copyright. So, for example, if you played a trailer of a film in your YouTube channel without actually pausing it and saying things about it, that's fair use. But if you played it the 3 minutes of a film and had nothing of you talking at the front or the end of it, then that would just be like you're nicking their bit and making money off of it. That's kind of the way that they look at it.
I see. So, all right. So that is a term that is for all users on the internet.
Yeah, you will see also on some YouTube videos at the front of their first frame, they will put up text saying this has been used for fair use. So, for example, people commentating on, say, news articles or the royals and things like that, they go, this is fair use. We've taken film from, say, Sky TV. They play a few frames of it and then they talk about it and then do something else. And that's the way that you can get around copyright issues.
Okay. That answers my question, because I wasn't sure, what because in the past, if you were doing that kind of stuff, there would be lawsuits all over the place.
Were they showing you in the correct light, as in they had the correct context for that piece?
Yeah,
it wasn't chopped to make it sound a completely different point that you were trying to make. Yeah.
No. They had Anthony, I think, was guiding them to a certain place, and then he cut this first section out and put it up, and then I talked. Then they talked some more, and then they put the second one up and talked, and then they talked some more, and they put the third one up and talked on a big screen that they had in this room that they have. And this is a private podcast. You can't even see it. You can't see the whole thing unless you're a member.
Okay.
So,
because
anyway,
what I was saying is that, for example, if you said in the conversation, I like frogs, which was in the total podcast, but then they cut your audio to say, I don't like frogs, and then played that in front, then obviously that would be a problem, Tamar?
Right.
I was just going to say, I've got to dash off to another space. So I don't know if you guys are going to be on much longer, but
No.
I wanted to...
No.
Now, Tamar, the fact that you said you have to dash to another space in the way that you did, isn't our space good enough for you?
You're supposed to close it at 5?
I know.
So you're running away.
Uh-oh.
I'm not
We
running
appreciate
away.
you coming back and all the technical issues, so we're going to close it down anyway. But I like the fact that you want to say things, but the fact that you and I know each other and you do good comedy, it's great.
Yeah. It helps for the laughter. The laughter's good.
Yeah. And the giant spiders.
Okay.
You got a soundboard knocking around.
That's funny.
Anyway, what space are you off to?
It's a space about internet data and Google. Basically, they're tracking down people seeking abortions, and
Whoa.
yeah,
Where do you live?
I live in Pennsylvania, but
So you're in the United States.
yeah.
Oh, geez, I didn't hear about that. Where's that?
Well, I mean, it's like no matter where you live nationally, anti-abortion enforcement can, Google's cooperating with them. So, your HIPAA rights and your online data is at stake. And I think Google claimed they weren't going to do that, but they were caught doing it, of course, anyway.
Right. Yeah. Well, how can they do that? I mean, there is HIPAA rights. I mean,
well, your HIPAA rights are being violated, so that's going to be a big issue for people.
God almighty.
When does that start? Because we'll let you get going because we're going to close this room down. When's yours start?
It just started 5 minutes ago.
Oh, well, thank you very much for spending that extra 5 minutes with us.
Okay.
Hey, Tamar, take care and pleasure meeting everybody here. And I just unlocked my profile, so if you care to follow me, you can. If not, I don't care.
Oh, hey, I want to ask. All right, you guys. See you later.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
And Pete, thanks very much for coming in and obviously giving us personal information and adding to the content of what we discuss.
Well, it's relevant, and I want everybody to hear that story. Just because it gives different people different insights, but it's still relevant. And,
most definitely.
Yeah, but hey, I enjoyed this thoroughly, and thanks everybody. And you guys have a wonderful. When are you going to be back on again? In July?
In July. If you, in your direct messaging, I've put our website at the bottom, and when you click on that, there's an events page, and it will take you to the different events. One's in July, and we're going to be using an app called callin.com. And again, in the links of that event, it shows you how to get into callin.com, and it's easy. Just go to the website. They will send you your email, a verification code, and it's basically like Zoom, but you can either access it via a browser or you can actually install the app on your phone and do it either way. It's a more flexible way than Twitter Space, because obviously if you don't have a smartphone, other people who are on laptops can't really join in with conversation of talking within this environment.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to leave, but you guys, I really enjoyed listening, and I'll be back. And I'm going to stalk all you guys now. And if you do spaces, I'll come into them.
As long as you're not the FBI, you're fine.
Yeah. I mean, as I say, sample a few of the podcasts, whichever format, YouTube or these, and then you'll get a gist of it all. And we play across platforms depending on what the presentation is from people. So like Zoom would be for anything visual, or whether the person doesn't have the option to actually utilize, say, Twitter Spaces and things like that. So that's why we're flexible. Anyway, thank you very much, Pete.
Concerning the FBI, after I got out of the Marine Corps, the company did try to recruit me.
Yeah, I'm a vet myself, so I understand.
Yeah,
that's another story.
Yeah, it is. Going down another rabbit hole.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Right, so I've got to go now. But Ian, would you like to say anything? Then Gabe, Alexi, or Miro?
No, it's been a pleasure, everyone. And Pete, yeah, it's been brilliant to meet you. And yeah, guys, it's lovely to see you all here. Greybeard, Alexi, Myron, Miro, Gabe. Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, guys. Thank you. And Paul, obviously.
Yeah, when you get a chance, give me a call, Ian.
Yeah, I will do, bro. Are you free tomorrow?
What is tomorrow? Friday?
Yeah.
Yes.
In the morning, yes, and in the evening, yes.
Oh, magic. Would it be cool if I gave you a shout in the evening?
Yeah, because I got to go to, I have to run errands and stuff, and then in the evenings, I'm free.
Oh, that's brilliant, bro. Yeah, that'd be magic. I'll definitely give you a shout then.
Okay, great.
Cool.
Excellent. Glad everyone's got their social diary organized, and thank you very much for butting.
Is that live on the recording as well?
I keep trying to tell people, but nobody listens to me. But on YouTube, that will be the great ending, that everyone got their diary to talk to everybody. Gabe, do you want to say anything before we go? Would you like to hook up with any other dates that we've got going on?
Well, I guess, it was just good popping in for a few minutes and hearing from you guys. It's nice to be back.
Definitely. Yeah. Publicize what's happening in June for you, Gabe. What are you doing in June, Gabe?
What am I doing?
No, what's coming out in June, Gabe?
In June? Oh, yeah. You're plugging my...
No, you're meant to be plugging your own.
Oh, I'm plugging my own space. Okay, yeah, it was a space we did about a year ago, or 2, or 3. I can't remember when.
It's a 4-parter, so if you got 4.5 hours, it's been reduced from 5. Yeah.
Well, you don't have to listen to all 4 hours at the same time.
Right.
No, I've blocked it into 1.5 hours. So
okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, people wouldn't listen.
Yeah.
It is fun. I've listened to it 3 times.
Okay.
Anyway, I would like to say goodnight to everybody, and thank you very much once again to all those who listen in the future. Speak to you soon. Bye.
Yes, adios.
Have a good night.
Bye.